Hey, what's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining us again. We're live, and we got a fun setup for you guys today as we kick it off into the new year. We could have gotten all sappy and lame and done resolutions and stuff, but nobody wants that. We're keeping it tight to what's relevant and trending. Nosferatu. I know you're dying for that one. No, honestly, everybody here in the studio, me, Doug, Will, we went and saw Nosferatu. It was a great movie. So we're going to talk about the movie, but also unpack a lot of the history, because this is like a deeply historical movie. This is a film, and kind of unpacking the history of the film itself. And of course, how we as millennials have come to recognize this film to begin with. You don't know of the Swamp Thing, but you know of Nosferatu. And we know it's because of SpongeBob. So there's a lot to unpack with that one. And then we're going to take it to how Call of Duty has totally fallen off. One of like the pillars of video game development, your youth, and what it means to play video games has severely fallen off. And we're going to talk about that. Or at least that's what the internet's claiming. And the community's getting offended because Call of Duty's still here and hot. And then finally, we're going to close it out with how Gen Alpha is dumb. We were saying, they say it about millennials, they say it about Gen Z. Now they're like, you think they're dumb. Wait until we tell you about the newest one. So, out of the factory full of people, we're just downgrading each new iOS system. We're getting worse. So that being said, I can't do it without hanging in the pickle gallery in the wing there. Silent Destroyer, how you doing, my good friend?
Yo, what's up, guys? I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good, brother. Doing
Happy
good.
to be here.
Glad you're joining us. How's your day
Thank you
been?
guys
How's
for
the
having me.
holiday leading into New Year's treating you?
Very busy, working a lot, but we're getting through it.
I like it. I like it.
That.
So true.
Hear
And
that.
you know what? Working into the new year. That's it. We're gonna start
That's
this new
the way to
year
do
off
it.
with a strong foundation, baby. I like that.
That's the way to do it. Let's get it going.
That's the momentum. And my co-host joining me, my good friend, Will Hubert. How you doing, Will?
Glad to be back. Glad to be back. I'm looking forward to these topics, especially I like how you end with it just getting progressively dumber to just the pillar of dumb at the bottom.
Yeah. Gen Alpha. We're
Yeah.
coming for you.
I'm looking forward to hearing about these kids.
Oh,
I don't even know what the age group is. I can assume. Like, if you were to be like, oh, they're 2 to 4, I'd be like, yeah, well, probably not geniuses.
That's funny. And running the keys as always, Dougie Fresh.
Alex, I can't wait to rethink about our generations and SpongeBob. I'm ready.
He can't wait to think about our generation.
Always repping Cavs or Browns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
either
the Cavs
way.
play tonight, so, try to bring them some luck,
And they're dominating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope so. I have a parlay, so.
There it is. Doug's hooked. Doug's hooked. Send her out. You know what's so funny is, watch the Sunday Football Review. You will watch a 17-week, just
Yes.
like Danny Dufresne's jail cell, slowly chipping away at Doug. I won't do it. I already got enough vices. Now, Cavs jerk, because I made a parlay.
With my free bet money for signing up.
I was going to say, he's got that free money, and the instant it actually starts hitting the bank account, I'm out.
Took 17 weeks.
Yeah, honestly, it really did.
All right, let's kick this thing off. We've got a fun topic to start us off today. Talking about the new movie, old movie, remake, classic film, SpongeBob hero, Nosferatu. So Nosferatu is actually a 1922 silent horror film directed by F.W. Monroe. Is one of the most influential movies in history and in the history of cinema. It is an unofficial adaptation of Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula. But due to legal challenges, Stoker's estate had it reworked and altered significantly. At least that's how it ended up being.
Yep.
Because truly, it was a drastic difference. Instead of Count Dracula, they created Count Orlok. And it's this vampire story that mirrors that which is in the classic novel Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
And the film took off, being one of the first of its kind and really just taking the horror genre to a whole new level. There really wasn't anything like this, and it really stepped up, especially what you could do with silent films. Now, one of the advertisements as this was blowing up made its way to Stoker's widow, who had taken on from the estate the rights to the Dracula story and wanted to preserve the story in its naturality as much as possible. So she took it to court, found that it was a copyright infringement, and it was a court order to have every copy destroyed. She's out here buying copies, destroying them. However, it grew to such a giant cult following, they couldn't get ahead of it. And no matter how much she tried, she couldn't destroy it totally. And it began to thrive even stronger in this kind of black market era. So the film develops this strong cult classic following and has now found itself as like a pillar of film and cinema and will never go away. And one of the things that I wanted to investigate, so the first thing I think of is, okay, this film, like I could barely get my friends to go watch, we just watched the new one. Hey, you want to come watch the 1922 silent film? Nah, I'm all right. Well, okay. That was the copyright infringement.
Yep.
That should be where the story is limited. I start asking myself immediately, if that's a copyright, how are you able to make more? Like, you certainly wouldn't be able to put put a production together and create another one. That would just be another infringement. So how are they doing this? Well, what's funny is Dracula, now through the perspective of time, in 1922, still had its protection, whereas now Dracula, the novel, has found itself in the public domain. And that's how you've had so many different iterations of Count Dracula and the vampire story.
Oh, yeah.
So, one, it's reached that level, but even more so, if the time didn't elapse, it has become such a significant fabric to the industry that it has opened the door to, again, a fair use claim. So it's interesting. That's how we're able to get more developments and newer iterations of it. But again, can we be real? We know this is how you know of this guy. It's the only way I knew of the guy.
Hey, if that was you on the phone and you on the bus, then who was flickering the lights?
Nosferatu! Leading up to this episode, I think I may have said that to myself like 10 times a day. Nosferatu. So what's funny is, for really like a century of people and film and cinema, this movie has made a significant social impact and will live on forever. However, to all of us, the extent of its relevance, I think this movie will extend it significantly further. Great film. The new one, 2024. However, the main reason this film character from 1922 has any relevance is because he's flickering the lights in a SpongeBob episode that we all were playing with our toys at 8 years old, and it was on the living room. That's how you know of Nosferatu. Why was Nosferatu even in that sketch, in that episode? What's interesting is there's even a story to that. How did Nosferatu find itself in this clip of SpongeBob? So if you recall, in this episode, it's the late shift, and they're worried about the hash slinging slasher.
The slash ringing, the pash ringing, stinging. Great. It is a classic SpongeBob episode.
It's going to be probably, one of the most eternal of the series.
Oh, yeah.
So throughout the episode, things are happening. Ooze is coming out the walls, and at the end of it, even the hash slinging slasher, everything could be explained. The one thing that they couldn't explain was why the lights were flickering. So what's interesting is the writer Jay Lender originally had this character that's Floorboard Harry. And
Nice.
so what's interesting is SpongeBob, there's a scene where he's cleaning the bathroom and he makes a passing comment about how he's got to clean the bathroom and then he's got to deliver the mail to Floorboard Harry, who lives under the Krusty Krab. And when they ran it back, and they actually in the episode have Floorboard Harry doing the flickering, when they ran the episode to a bunch of kids, the joke just didn't land at all. So instead of Nosferatu, it was Floorboard Harry flickering the light, and it was just too complicated of a callback that it just didn't land. So in a short period of time, they needed to come up with something that could stand in, that had no context or lead up to that point, that could just make an impact, but didn't have to have all of this webbing throughout the episode. And Jay Lender thought back to when he was a kid and growing up. So his parents owned a bagel factory, and he would hang out with the cartoonist that would prepare the marketing and advertising for the bagels. Mm-hmm. And so in a recent interview with James Grady of Polygon, he shared how he had this love for a classic magazine, Famous Monsters of Film. And it's, this very old classic magazine that would review classic movies or classic horror films, their makeup and the story and lure around them. So he got obsessed with this magazine, and one of the images that just plagued the magazine, I mean, it would come up a lot. He'd see it often, and he always laughed that this image resonated with him significantly because it just kind of haunted his presence.
It's a famous image in film too, like that one right there on its own, like its own merits. Like for our generation, no, but like for a guy writing probably in his 30s, 40s, a cartoon for kids, like yeah, he probably saw that multiple times growing up. Like his grandfather definitely showed him that movie. He was probably like, kind of sucks, silent film, but hard to forget that one.
Right? No, you're right. So he inserts Nosferatu, has this impactful scene. And how interesting is it that, this little element of the writer's childhood, and he just kind of embedded it to hopefully bring a smile to our childhoods as it did his. And it is one of the most common, relatable elements of a SpongeBob episode a whole generation shares.
Yep.
Not that dumb Generation Alpha, which we're going to get to. But
no, they don't get it.
They don't.
We do.
But we do.
We're cultured. We're cultured people. No, it's great. You know me. I love film. I'm a big follower. I've been personally looking forward to this movie for about 2 years now, so it lived up to my expectations. The character in Nosferatu, like that whole thing with like Bram Stoker's his estate. Instant, I first heard about that. I've heard about it a while ago because they weren't, obviously they couldn't do anything about it this time around, but I guess their estate wasn't necessarily thrilled again about another adaptation without much recognition being going. And I was just like, gold digging whore. Like you just like let it go at this point now, man. Like you didn't invent electricity. Like this is a pop culture icon. What about like the cereal guy, Count Choco, whatever. Yeah, where's the copyright for that one? I wonder who he's supposed to be.
Well, but also it's like, at what point do you created like, let's say a species.
Uh-huh.
You own a version of that, a character, Dracula, but do you own the species? Like dragon. If I made a dragon movie, do I then own all dragons, or I own this version of dragons? Or do I own the concept of anything with flying lizards that breathe fire? Godzilla. Godzilla is this thing. Does Godzilla infringe on Game of Thrones? Like at some point, you're either totally crippling a free marketplace of fun, creative ideas, or this is what's necessary to preserve what motivates art to begin with. And we owe compensation to the artist.
No, I think Godzilla infringes on Game of Thrones. Godzilla definitely attacked King's Landing.
I feel like at some point when you create Dracula, even if it's the first concept of a blood-sucking, dead, demonic entity.
Undead.
Okay, you win.
Regardless, the way I view it is I look at Dracula as cartoony, right? Something about his origin is cartoony, and he's not. It's the same story, different characters, just minor tweaks. Nosferatu has this kind of, I guess, connotation behind it in film that it's same, but different, right? So, like, I think the only Dracula movie I could think of where I think of like there was an actual attempt that for it to be a horror film was ironically called Bram Stoker's Dracula from the 90s. It's not on the same level as this movie. Like, he's kind of cartoony. It's a great movie. I highly recommend it.
Why would you approve that movie if you're not if you're mad?
Because it was it's literally Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's the direct iteration of the novel. Whereas this is like, it is, but like they just changed the names around because some gold digging horror was like, no, I'm not a fan of that one.
Well, fun fact, the Bram Stoker one you're talking about, that was directed by the Godfather director, and it bombed. It was a failure.
It did. I think it's a good movie. It's Keanu Reeves' worst performance in history, though. He is not Dracula. He plays the husband's role in yesterday's movie.
Okay.
He's the husband.
Renfield?
And Winona Ryder was the girl.
That's a solid cast.
They're awful. They are awful in that movie. Now, Gary Oldman plays Dracula. He's fantastic. It's a good movie. I recommend it. It's more a good movie based on the filmmaking aspects behind it. But when you watch it, you will be like 20 minutes in and be like, I've seen this. I've seen this story done before. You know, and it was like the same one as last night.
Well,
Will,
go ahead, Doug.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So, Will, last night, like you say that last night, watching that, it brought me back to childhood watching Dracula Dead and Loving It with Leslie Nielsen. And it's like, that's a Dracula movie, but the plot is like, I'm watching this, I'm like, I already kind of know where this is going, don't I?
It really is. It's just like so many people now have adapted the Nosferatu and the Dracula story that you just kind of pick and choose which ones you like, which ones are campy. It almost gets lost in the woods that the estate tried so hard. And like you said, back then, like it wasn't like the internet. It's not like something hits the internet now. It's like immediately trending. It's out there. You're screwed. Back then, you could have put a stop to this. That gives credence to how much the people back then loved this new idea of like a story to be told. That it's 100 years later, and the movie came out on Christmas, and we were like, we got to see it. We got to see it for the show.
Yeah,
I wanted to see it for my own personal reasons,
Same
let alone
here,
the show.
too.
But I think it's great. I couldn't be more thrilled. Just that the content of the movie, let alone who made it itself.
Well, and again, what's nice is go watch a 1922 silent film. You're going to see the ceiling of creativity.
Yep.
That you can only do so much. So what was really cool was kind of going in blind. I'm just going in as like what's this SpongeBob deviant gonna do next? Yeah. And I really bring context to this clearly notable and famous character that I have no context for beyond flickering lights. So I would see that movie whether it was a trending topic we would do for the show or not. I would want to see that movie just because it's impactful. When you go watch that movie and again, I want to stray away from like really spoiling the movie for anybody that's watched it, really just encourage them to go see it. But when you go see that movie and then you follow it up with a 1922, like the original, I like that you could see all of these kind of holes that a silent film leaves, how those get filled in by creative interpretation. And it comes out really cool.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, you know what? That's a great, how would we get from here to here? Or what's this connection filled with whatever dialogue and storyline? Love it. Other parts, it's like, well, it's kind of better when you don't fill that hole because it changes the whole connotation of what's going on here. I'll admit that first scene in the new movie totally confused me.
Mhm.
In that if you watch the original or anything else,
makes
it
sense.
doesn't have that.
No, it doesn't. Have
So
that.
if you just watch the story in a linear progression, to me, makes so much more sense than what they do in that first scene. Because I'm like, I thought they'd explain why she did that. Like, whatever she did
Well,
there,
yeah.
I like why.
Yeah.
And I thought there'd be a scene where it'd be a great reveal. Like,
No.
again, having not seen it, not knowing what to expect, I expected a scene where it'd be like, oh, I thought I was being offered eternal life, and that's why I chose this. Like, you're just saying in the middle, and I'm not spoiling anything because this is literally the first 30 seconds. But you're telling me you just were like, I'm pledging my love to something random out there in the universe.
Yep.
Totally, I don't like that. Don't like that. Boo. Watch the original. Totally different. Totally different. It just kicks off with a guy and his wife. And
Yeah, it skips that scene.
No, that scene not existing changes it, I think. Not enough for it to be a totally different story, but there's a greater connection between this woman and Nosferatu in this newer one
Mhm.
than in the other, where it's just like, this was just a vampire that picked a lady
Right.
versus this lady. And there's interviews that you could go watch where the lead actress in this new movie, she talks about how, you know, the director and a lot of the creative minds around the story wanted there to be this triangle of love where like she loves her husband and she loves this beast. And it's like, okay, now we've got a Disney movie mixed in here too.
But that is the story. Like that
I
is
get
the
it.
novel. Like for me, like
Wait. Real quick though. One of the major things that allowed Nosferatu to skate this tight line of infringement is one, not Count Dracula, Count Orlok, but one of the major adaptations is a very major change in its appearance.
Mhm.
And the only thing I want to say is Dracula in its origin, that makes sense if it's like this slick, you know, attractive member of the night
You wouldn't
versus
know.
just like a corpse
Right.
with a mustache. The mustache is insane in this movie.
Well,
by
that's
the
how
way.
they
And
got-
yeah, if you're going Nosferatu doesn't have a mustache, I know. Real quick, Doug, what were you gonna say? And then I want to get to this thing.
Well, no, like that's how they kind of like got away with doing the movie, like getting around some of this stuff back then was like they were trying to kind of make it different. Like Count Dracula is supposed to be this classy, like not corpse looking or deviant looking thing, and Nosferatu is like a deviant looking thing. Also, a fun fact:
Yes.
the girl in the new movie is Johnny Depp's daughter. I looked that up this morning. I
I
was
stand
like,
by
who is
everything
that
I said
actress?
last night. I'm not gonna say it right now, but I stand by it. I want to say it
I
again.
said that to you during the movie.
You didn't say that. I didn't. I missed that part.
I was like when you were saying what
Bad
you were
choice.
saying, I was like, that's Johnny Depp's daughter.
I wouldn't pick her 10 times over. Anyway, check out this interview by the director, Robert Eggers. Nope, that's not an interview by John.
Vampires are pretty much no longer scary, because vampires are pretty much no longer scary, thanks to the culmination of the cinematic vampires evolution into Edward Cullen.
Yeah, I was to say, Rob, your former leading man, had a lot to do with that one too.
He did, yeah. So I went back to the folklore, that from the time when people actually believed in vampires and were afraid of them because they thought they were real. And those early folk vampires, they look like putrid corpses. So the question then became, what does a dead Transylvanian nobleman look like? And you start looking at portraits, and all of a sudden you have facial features, you have a Hungarian costume with incredibly long sleeves, you have certain hairstyles, and there you go. But then, yes, Linda Muir, the costume designer, David White, the prosthetics designer, they bring so much more than my imagination can conjure alone. That's the beauty of collaboration. But that was more than the seed was planted when I did the research.
So again, one of the major things I want to at least appreciate about Robert Eggers is through all of his films, he is a historian and he takes a lot of time and puts a lot of work into researching those time periods. A lot of these are just period pieces. And while I don't necessarily agree with the giant mustache on this Nosferatu,
On a corpse.
which normally has never had one. At least it's the consideration of the hairstyles of that time and what they would look like. Now, like Doug said, if he was a dead guy, I don't think you'd have this big bushy mustache. The mustache was distracting. Again, I want to say this. If the movie's Nosferatu, and Nosferatu's got to be coming out at some point, and like me, you've never seen this movie, and right now we're talking to Count Orlok, and holy hell, does he have a mustache? I'm sitting back going, when does Nosferatu come out? He's got to come out. Once the lights flicker, obviously. But I'm sitting back going, when does Nosferatu come out? Because I'm sitting there going, dude, he keeps, the way they're talking about like the master, I'm like, oh, you know what? Let's transition just a little bit here. I loved that movie. Film, cinematography, treat yourself to a night out. Watching it, I do feel it's a movie you got to see in a theater. That's not an at-home movie as much as it is in a theater.
The atmosphere was fantastic in that film.
Did an amazing job.
From start to finish, something was off about the movie.
I will say this, though. In terms of a thrilling roller coaster with great writing, I'm picking Midnight Mass 10 times over.
Well, okay. No, you know me. I'm going to defend Midnight Mass till but like you're comparing something that's 7 hours long to a 2-hour adaptation that's been done multiple times.
So again, does it beat all the iterations?
On top of that, one thing we haven't gotten into is the simplicity of this story is still, it's the simplest story. Like it's a simple, there is nothing complex about this story.
No.
You know, and that's what I like about it. He's not trying, the director, meaning, and most people who have adapted the Dracula and the Nosferatu, they've kept it very by the books. Like there's this girl, she's married, and she made a deal with the devil, or however they want to interpret it. That's it. Like it's just a love triangle story. So it's not trying to be anything more than that. And I appreciated it for being that. Midnight Mass is so many more things. So
yes.
It's, like you know me, I love it. I could talk about that all day. Like that is right in my itch. But for this being like someone who knows, I've seen many adaptations of this story done. I thought this one was done one of the best.
Oh, it very is the best.
Well. Like just
and what I can appreciate about your point is you have a very bare bones story.
Right.
And it puts some meat on those bones more than what the original story gave. It enhanced it, and I liked it a lot. When I'm preparing mentally for like today's episode, one of the things I'm thinking about is, Doug won't shut up about whatever that other Dracula movie is. Say it again, Doug. Give it to us.
Dracula Dead and Loving It with the late, great Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, you want to guess how many times I've heard that in the last 2 days alone? Oh, my God. So I'm sitting there thinking Doug likes a Dracula movie. You're talking about other Dracula movies. What would be my favorite Dracula movie? Because, I'm talking about the legal side of things.
Blade.
Now Dracula.
Blade 2. Blade 3.
That's Doug. He's the Marvel guy.
The Blade movies are pretty sick. No. The early Blade ones, they're pretty sick.
That's, again, timepiece. I don't even really like those movies as much as they are a window in time.
They're the best B movies of the 90s you could ever ask for. That blood looks awful. It looks awful. The CGI is horrendous. Love it. Opening scene of the Blade franchise. They are in a disco rave and blood is coming down from that. How could you not love that?
That's forgettable. That's the most unforgettable scene of like all the Blade movies is the disco, like the rave going on. It's
amazing. They're all like drinking the blood. And then Wesley Snipes just comes in and kills them all, and it looks awful. The CGI is horrendous. I had to go on a rant right there because you're like I was like, let me tell you, there's some great gems out there.
Look at how many different versions of this character we've seen. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, what would be my favorite? Definitely Van Helsing. And when I sit back and your whole point is that's a 7-hour story, Midnight Mass. Then I'm like, because I thought, we'll talk about that. Midnight Mass is a great story.
There's a vampire in it.
But then you sit back and you go, well, here is a story that 80% of it is not even about Dracula.
Right.
Like again, you're talking about Van Helsing. Like, it's about a totally different character.
Right.
And I'm like, but I loved Dracula in this one.
Mm-hmm.
So what's weird is this one book created a lore that
Mm-hmm.
created a character that has been interpreted a million times over. And like you said, Nosferatu is amongst the bedrock of it. It isn't Dracula, but it is the first visual version we've ever seen of Dracula.
Yeah.
It really carries the torch. What's wild to me too, that actor interpreted the adaptation, the look of Nosferatu. He created it, not the director, the actor. He did the makeup and designed what Nosferatu would look like. The two buck teeth are the fangs.
Yeah.
You have never seen that version of it before or since. It's always been the molars, even Dracula, or the canines, and
The
even
canines,
Dracula in the book is the canines. So this was an evolved iteration, and there's interesting aspects of it that we see, but again, long ears, long fingers, but then again, the teeth. The most iconic thing about a vampire. Go kid, draw me a stick figure vampire. That's the only thing they're going to do. Maybe a cape, teeth. It starts and ends with the teeth.
They're gonna draw the one from Sesame Street.
I heard that a lot yesterday too.
Oh,
At the Browns game? Yeah.
I bet. I bet. But no, like I agree with your point. Like that's the great thing about this movie being made by this director. Personally, for me, there's not another director alive I would have had any interest for. This guy making this movie as a timepiece, I was like, I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm
let's talk
all
about
in.
that. So I don't know if anybody has seen it. You're a big fan of Witch or Vitch, whatever.
The
And,
Vavitch.
and then there's what's the Viking
His
one?
4 movies are The Witch, The Lighthouse,
Well, I
The
was gonna get to The
Northman,
Lighthouse.
and
Northman.
Nosferatu.
Northman. So then wrapping up the Lighthouse, I have seen the first 2 I hadn't.
Mhm.
Will had suggested me to see the Lighthouse because he's a fan of the director.
Big fan.
That is it's cinema. That is a film. It is art, interpreted as you will. That is a movie I had and will watch one time in my life.
That's fair.
Watched it, never gonna see it again.
Like you don't forget it.
Bingo.
That's the thing, and that's what
That's
I love.
art, dude.
That's what I love about this
I
director.
give it to him.
Like they're like of all of his 4 movies, that is the one where it's like, oh, you'll watch it once, you'll give it a watch, and then you'll be
You'll
like, I'm
never
good.
forget it.
The Northman is his most. The Northman I call art house gladiator. It's like the similar story. All of his movies are very simplistic in their story. There's not a big change. There's no like grand sweeping plot. Like the Northman is Viking, son of a king. The king's brother kills him. He gets exiled. 18 years later, he goes back for revenge. That's the story. Like it's not like some grand. It's very much like Gladiator. The Witch. There's a witch. That's the movie. You got this Puritan family expelled from their city. They go out and live in the woods because they believe in a different religion. And the movie right away, it's called The Witch. And instead of like modern horror, where it's like, well, I wonder if there is a witch, or maybe the witch is a metaphor. No, there's a witch. It's doing some weird shit. And then like right away, but like they're period pieces. They're movies like he does great lingering shots. And you guys saw it yesterday where it's like, it kind of like pans on something and then it slowly goes over. And the whole time you're like, what is going to happen?
Yep.
Something's going to happen. And it's usually not what you think. He's very great at pacing, cinematography. That scene in the movie, and if you go see it, that opening scene, not opening scene, but the first time you see the castle in the distance and he's like going down in the chariot and the dogs are chasing after, I was like, atmosphere, nailed it.
Great
Yes.
scene.
Like in
yeah.
my like of the directors alive, he is in my top 3. He's not 1, he's definitely 2.
And again, nailed the voice, nailed the atmosphere, even the mustache. By the last scene,
Mhm.
I bitched to you about that mustache the whole movie. Last scene, mint.
Yeah, like there's
It's meant to be.
like that, and that's the thing. Like this guy as a director, everything he is fantastic at utilizing every frame of a shot. There is not a single wasted shot, and any of his movies. He shows you what he wants you to see.
You know what's funny? I love you making that point because I'm watching a silent film.
Mhm.
What we watched yesterday was 2 hours and 20 minutes. The original is an hour and 20 minutes. He bumped up a basic skeleton story an hour.
Yep.
I'm watching it while I'm editing and preparing for today's episode. I'm getting things going, and that's going. It goes Act 1.
Mhm.
Ends when he gets to the castle,
Yes.
and Act 2 begins at the castle. I'm like, oh my God, now we gotta do the whole cat. So here's what's funny is something that was an hour shorter felt twice as long.
Yes.
And I get it, it's a different form of movie, but think about that. They do a quick little scene and then literally cut to print for 30 seconds. How dumb were the folks 100 years ago? I'm reading that thing. Dude, it's still on the screen.
Yep.
It's like literally one line of dialogue, and oh, okay, now we're on again. And then it would just do like and then it's another line. You're like, son of a gun.
And you think like the movie we watched last night, that was the equivalent to them 100 years ago. And that's what they're doing. But that's what I mean. It's like for him to like not in
Nothing
all of
was
his movies,
wasted.
he doesn't waste any shots. And he's very, very talented. Like he's only done 4 feature films. This is his widest released movie. Like I actually looked it up for my own curiosity. Like The Witch, that was his debut movie, had like a $4 million budget. The Northman, I think, was his most expensive. Is the only one he didn't make a profit on, which didn't surprise me. I would say that's probably the weakest of his movies, but I personally very much like it.
Really?
Yeah, I like those kind of movies. Like I said, it's art house Gladiator. I was literally watching him like this feels like Gladiator. But again, it's a period piece. And the guy who plays Nosferatu in yesterday's movie, it was his brother who played the Northman. Actually, you know him. He's Madison. He's Mattson in Succession. The dude who shows up in the 3rd season that ends up buying the Roy Industry. The giant like Norwegian dude. That's him. He's the Northman.
Oh, wow.
And that was like a passion project for him. And he wanted Eggers to direct it. And Nosferatu was Eggers' passion project. And honestly, he wanted to make back in 2015. He wanted this to be his first movie, but he couldn't get like the money for it. Cause like, again, this movie, bigger budget. Like the costumes, the pageantry of this movie is fantastic. Like you really feel like you're in 1839 Germany. He wasn't able to do that a decade ago, but like he's been working on this script for about a decade now. So
it was well delivered. It was well delivered.
Mhm.
You know, hanging patiently in the wing. I'm eager to see if he has any thoughts for us. Silent Destroyer, what are you thinking on this whole Nosferatu deal?
I have personally not seen the movie. I saw the trailer though; it looks interesting, and just listening to you guys talk about it for that past half hour has made me want to go see it. Definitely gonna add it to the list this holiday.
Dude, you got to.
I have not seen the original one, but the only times I've seen it is in those pop-up scare Flash movies from the early 2000s. I don't know if you remember those Flash movies from the early 2000s that were on like Stickam.com and Newgrounds and Funny Junk and all that, and people would like people would just play these animations, and then at the end it would just be like, "Rah!" and then there'd be a picture of Nosferatu. Like that's basically my first exposure to him, like in the late 90s, early 2000s. I have not seen the original movie though, but just like I said, listening to you guys talk about it has definitely made me want to see the new one and the old one, because I love silent movies. I love silent, like Charlie Chaplin and all that era of cinema. Lots of fun to watch.
Silent like silent.
Mhm.
Yeah, silent doesn't need to get you silent film. No, if you're interested, I know it's on Amazon Prime. That's where I was watching it, but it is on like some of those other free platforms where like, you know, you just got to like watch commercials. Yep. So just Google it. The free one is out there. And like I was saying, Silent, if you're looking for a movie, this is one you catch in the theater.
Yeah. It's got a great.
They just got back bottomless popcorn here because of the 2000 to 2020. I'm not gonna say, I don't want us to get demonetized. You know what happened in 2020 because everything shut down and all that. They stopped bottomless popcorn. They stopped the bottomless popcorn at all of the theaters here. But now, as of last month, I think, or the month before, they got back bottomless popcorn. So I'm definitely going to go to the theater and check it out for sure.
I love that. That's what gets you there.
God damn it, Canada's back.
We're back, baby. Bottomless popcorn. Here we come.
Canada's back.
No, another I guess vampire movie to watch would be the 90s Bram Stoker's Dracula. Just that's another one. Again, like it's got its faults.
Can we be real though? All right, silence with us. Getting off the Nosferatu and just to like a social dialogue here. I'm curious, how many times can you see this damn story before it gets boring? Like, what's cool about this for me is like this is a totally new, evolutionized version of a classic. And I haven't seen all these other Dracula versions or, iterations. But at some point, I think the story, you thought, hey, basic, and you did something cool with something basic. I gave you a box and you turned it into a spaceship. Love you. You're cardboard creative. But at the same time, I want to go, this is a stupid story. It's a stupid story. They did a great job of keeping me entertained. And again, watching either version, you're in it. You're in it. But what is the story in and of itself? A guy marries a woman, and either in the new version, a couple years back, she just pledged herself to the ethos, and the ethos just was like, I hear you, bitch, and I'm going to get you when I get you. Or in the original story, it's just like he marries a lady, and then a dead guy on the other side of the continent falls in love with her. Doug, pay attention. So.
Man's on a heater, Doug.
I'm just saying, I feel like this one is it's a very basic story. And either I'd like to see somebody take this character and make a totally in-depth, like if you say, well, Midnight Mass was 7 hours, bitch, you've had 100 years to write a better version of this.
They have. Look at like Blade. Look at like
Hollywood is so lazy.
Like again, like in terms of the iteration of that, the original Nosferatu, it's only been done like 2 or 3 other times.
I was going to say that's what made this so special. Was this is Nosferatu, not another vampire Count Dracula thing. So
but it's still like the same idea of the story, but it's only been done a handful of times, less than a handful of times. Yeah, I could think of Bram Stoker's Dracula in the 90s, and that's the Dracula story. I think there was another Nosferatu one in the 90s, and now this one. And then they just like, again, that's the great thing about like Dracula and Nosferatu as a character, is they are used in so many different unique ways to where, like you said, like your favorite vampire movie with Dracula in it is Van Helsing. He's not even the main character. He's just the baddie at the end. Whereas this one, it's like, no, it's his story. I always personally like this story, one for the simplicity, but I always loved how it's like a fairy tale. Like it's not necessarily like a happy fairy tale, but it is like that kind of whimsical, like, again, a girl in the 1830s, like just praying someone finds her and keeps her company, and something actually does. There's something like very sinister and scary about that. Like you don't, and especially like back then, like now, like you do that now and you'd be like, it's just cracked out in the corner. Like he's fine, but like back then it's like when you watch, like, for instance, his other movies, it's like you watch The Witch, and it's like in the 1500s, Puritan England. These are people who at most might see 50 people their whole life. Right. So there's something to that where it's like, yeah, it makes it creepier when you think about it. You're in the middle of the woods with just your family. You have no idea where anybody else is. And there's a witch. And in this one, it's like, well, it's Dracula. You don't know who the guy in the castle is going to be. And then you're walking in and you're like, I love that shot when he's walking up to the castle and all of a sudden the carriage is coming down and you're like, what's going to happen? And then all of a sudden it's just sideways. I love how he doesn't walk into it. It has him filmed as if he's floating and being drawn into the carriage.
Yeah, dude,
that's what I mean. It's like
too.
a fairy tale. That's what I really loved about this director doing that, because like he will do a fairy tale justice. He won't try and add too much pizzazz to it. He's going to treat this as like, maybe this could happen. Yeah. Maybe this would have happened. So, but I'm with you. Like, sure, like maybe you could add more spice to it, but it's like, yeah, well then like make like a Van Helsing or a Blade, and Dracula's in it, but there's this guy trying to get Dracula. Whereas this one is just simplistic. Like you have Willem Dafoe show up and he's like, these are the rats, they're everywhere. And it's like, that's how people would have acted. They'd have been like, what is going on?
No, right. Well, and to further enhance your point, I like Brad Richardson's comments here. Edgar could use the vampire as a metaphor for disease and decay, which he does. He definitely does. The figure of Count Orlok could be seen as an embodiment of the contagion. Again, the rats, he does a great job of and again, rats just give you that feeling and the sound,
especially in the times.
Oh, yeah. So again, either literal disease like the plague, which they do, or a more existential corruption that spreads across the world. The vampire's bite that could symbolize the fear of transmission or a viral spread of fear or death.
Right.
So I didn't realize that either, that there's 9 films of Nosferatu.
That's still less than Dracula, though.
Right.
But to Will's point, I just want to say, okay, do you guys remember growing up watching the Leonardo DiCaprio version of Romeo and Juliet?
Correct. Yes.
All right. So one, I remember the original Romeo and Juliet, where it's, a timepiece, right? So, she's up in it's like literally the classical up in the castle, in the courtyard.
It's kind of like a play. But
yes, it's so much like a play as a movie. Whereas Leonardo DiCaprio's interpretation, that movie, that version,
on Venice Beach.
Yeah, bro. Or it's
so
literally
bizarre.
Dudes with guns at a gas station with lowriders. I bite my thumb at you, sir. I bite my thumb at you. You bite your thumb at me, not you. I bite my thumb. What? And again, my 10th grade English teacher should be so proud. Memory of an elephant.
Oh, it's hard to forget Luigi from the Mario movie is the villain. It's hard to forget that.
How about this? That man goes on to be, in Ice Age.
Oh yeah, John Leguizamo. He's had a very established career.
He loved me. He really loved me. And then I'm sitting here like,
He
that's
smashes the
Tybalt or
melon.
whatever the dude's name is. Like,
He's Tybalt. Oh my God, you remember the name too.
I'm fucking good, baby.
Dude,
But so, okay, how many different times can you reinterpret a story before it's like, I know it happens so much that, like, again, this version is memorable and carries with us because it's not just the basic story. It's a totally different version. They're like having a gunfight on a beach. And you're just like, this is not a sword fight.
Sometimes you shouldn't ask and receive.
Yeah.
That's really all it was.
Soon it's going to be Romeo and Juliet, but just Star Wars.
Nuclear weapons.
Just
love
pew,
it.
pew, 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 pew. So, like, at some point, how many times can I see this story, no matter how many different ways interpreted? Like, Disney goes, Pixar's coming out with a newly animated interpretation. I'd be like, I'm bored.
They're going to do a musical number for Nosferatu.
I was about to say, no, pause. What if they did Adam Sandler, like, doing this Dracula now?
Oh my God.
And it's this animated Nosferatu.
We got Jack and Jill, the Nosferatu version.
No, he did that movie with Selena Gomez. Oh, the Transylvania Hotel or something.
See, that's another favorite Dracula. What are you talking about? We got another one.
Lots of Dracula.
Got another
movies,
one.
yeah.
No. Like he's flicking the lights.
Nosferatu.
No, that's I guess I want to make a comparison to that Romeo and Juliet movie you made. So again, Eggers, he does his timepieces. They all talk like with the times, right? I love how the Romeo and Juliet was like, all right, we're going to do that. But it's in 2010's Venice Beach. And they're going to talk like it was back then. Genius, dude. Like, I don't like that movie sucks, but God, whenever I'm watching it, I'm like, who in Hollywood was like, yes, green light it. Like, green light this thing. We got lovely Leo in it.
Lovely Leo.
How do you even pitch that? Like, okay, it's Romeo and Juliet, but today in the 90s with guns and lowriders.
And they're
like,
going to talk like that.
Yes, even more so.
Yeah.
Dude, that scene by the gas station is wild.
Iconic. That's like that's literally the only scene I can ever think of when I think of that movie is the gas station scene.
Yeah. There's part that, again, memorable.
There are a few I think of.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
They
that
did a
one
great
never
job.
leaves my head. That one never leaves my head. I just think of John Leguizamo with a gun.
Okay, real quick. One of the most iconic cinematic movies of all time, and it's a pretty like basic movie, but to me will go down as one of the greatest in cinema, and it's a horror film like this. is The Mist. And it's just
yes.
because
Oh
the
my
ending
God.
was the most absurd thing I had ever seen in my life.
I predicted that.
For
ending,
anybody
too.
who hadn't seen it, this is no spoiler alert. You should have seen it by now. This is 20 years old longer. They are in a Jeep or van or something. This dad, his child, and two great humans they've befriended throughout this great odyssey. Yeah, there's two old folks and his new love interest. Why do we say new love interest? Because his wife died. Mom's gone. All right. Mom's gone. I'm here with my kid and this lady that bats her eyes at me nicely and two old folk. And we are in the mist. If we get out of the car, the mist has monsters in it. The mist will kill us. So we're just going to drive until we run out of gas. Spoiler alert, they run out of gas. The next step of the plan, there was no plan B. This was plan A. Top notch. What's the next step when we run out of gas? I don't know, let's just starve it out. Let's just sit here and starve it out. No, what they decide, trying to fight off the zombies or monsters getting to the car. The next part of the plan was we're going to shoot ourselves. How many bullets we got? There's 5 people in the car, 4 bullets. So instead of like doubling up on someone no, Dad goes, what I'm going to do is take all of you out, my own kin included. Then I'm going to get out of the car and I'm going to let the mist get me. Impeccable timing. I blast the whole car, my own kin included.
So anyways, I started blasting.
Dude gets out of the car, mist goes away. And he's just left crying in the street as the military has like flamethrowers fighting the mist away. Mist gone. Perfect timing.
Great ending.
So I long diatribe because here is a film that like I'll never forget.
All right, it sticks with you.
Simply because of its ending. Taking it back to Romeo and Juliet, that interpretation was so incredible, just as good a timing, where it's like, poison, dead, wakes up, no, they literally just like passing ships. You're like, oh, what a beautiful tragedy. Like, I love that movie.
Yeah.
If they were to come out with a new Romeo and Juliet, I'm good. Again, unless they had space lasers or something. Like, you have to totally change it for me to go back.
If they do Nosferatu in the 90s with guns, I'm watching it.
But that's what I mean.
I
Unless
don't
you
care.
totally change it, like, I'm not going to see another 1822 Germany. Like, I'm good.
I don't know.
This guy knocked it out of the park.
I watched the newest Godzilla. He's still
That's
fighting.
fair.
He's still fighting shit. He's always pissed.
Always in Japan.
Somehow, he just does laps around it, and he's like, "I'm tired."
Just does laps around this little island. This was exhausting. I'm going back
He
under.
sees the big one over there, and he goes like, "Nah."
China.
Yeah. Nah, this one. This one's got better kimchi. That's all it is for him, man. He's a modest Godzilla.
That's right. That's right. I'm not asking for too much. I don't want the whole world, just this island.
Oh God! But I watched an interview though. The guy who played Bill Skarsgård, who played Nosferatu, the character. Hearing him talk about how he did the voice,
Great job.
just watch interviews of how he did it, like the training he did for it. He's like he
Just burnt cigarettes at the back of his throat.
well, like he's like I would start off like kind of like screaming to like hoarse out his voice,
Yeah.
and then like would talk in front of the mirror and do like make faces, kind of like to get into character. He's like it got to the point where like after like 3 weeks, like I couldn't get my voice back for like the longest time.
Did it come back?
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Like he's doing the interviews now. He's like, no, like it's fine now. But he's like, for like 3 months there, like this was my voice. He's like, I go get a coffee, and he's like, I'd like the grande clip. He's like, it got to the point where he's like, I felt bad. Like I would send someone to go get me a coffee because I didn't want to talk to people and break them out.
Sir, we don't have smalls.
It's yeah. I mean, it's such a great time for movies. I'm so thankful I got to see this in theaters. I'm looking forward to Egger's next one. It's going to be a medieval film. I'm curious what he's going to do with that. And yeah, it was great. I'm glad we went and did this. I'm really glad we went to see this.
Let's proceed. We've exhausted Nosferatu to the
It's a great
nth
topic.
degree. It was a great topic.
There's
and
a lot of history there.
It was a lot of fun being able to go down that rabbit hole. So moving on to the next topic, Call of Duty has officially fallen off. It has reached the end of its road. And this is a sad time. It's a sad declaration. I'm not one to quickly jump to that declaration, but I think the drastic reaching at becoming a big boys Fortnite is what makes you the loser in this battle royale. So when I look at Call of Duty, I remember it being the pavement to video gaming and the industry. I will go back to sleeping over Uncle Michael's house as a kid, and we would go to Blockbuster, rent a PlayStation 1, and he would, because I had a PlayStation at home, but I definitely didn't have these games, and he would get Call of Duty and like storm a submarine, and you're like, this is the craziest thing ever. And it was, the first was, you know what? It wasn't Call of Duty first, but it was like the first was on Xbox. I remember my first Call of Duty I played was the Xbox.
Yeah, it wasn't until after they split.
It was some like he would play some war games. It was so rudimentary.
Medal of Honor.
Then yes, that was it. Oh my god.
Oh, Medal of Honor
is what it was.
Yeah,
it was Medal of Honor, and then my first Xbox Call of Duty comes.
Yeah.
And
Call of Duty 2.
Dude,
Storming the Beaches.
And Modern Warfare. Or World at War. World at War was the greatest.
Remember when Call of Duty was about war?
Yes, thank you.
Now you can play as Nicki Minaj. That's what I mean. That's why when you're saying it's finally like gone downhill now, I was like, dude, I've been on this train since like Nicki Minaj and Snoop Dogg were in the game. I'm like, this used to be war. And then the instant a video game came out where you could gwitty on people, they were like, we got to do that. You got to switch up the formula. Like it's so... Yeah, I remember those days, the good old days. Now it's all about zombies, and who the hell knows what the hell's going on there.
So again,
the new zombies ain't bad. I will say that.
Well, so again, that they had multiplayer lockdown. They were the first to do it. It's a great game style, but they developed a whole new series of gaming that people would only go back to Call of Duty solely for zombies. I mean, there were plenty of people that enjoyed Call of Duty. There were plenty of people that enjoyed Call of Duty, and there were some people that only bought the games for the zombies. That's incredible too. But like you said, how far off the plane did it go? Well, there's dead Nazis,
Dude.
So they could become zombies.
Dude.
It's when they went, I don't know, to space that it was like, okay, did we go too
it's
far?
like the Fast and Furious franchise. Like it used to be street racing, and now they're on rockets flying in space at the moon on a car.
Yeah, and again, it's glorified versions of the same thing on top of it. Like, I got to ask you, because one of the tweets, let's get to like one of the tweets I want to laugh at, because I'm not just blowing hot air. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 saw a 37% drop in Steam player count within the last 30 days, and that's significant even beyond the last 3 games. They just continue to decline.
Hell yeah.
So, you know, a lot of the streamers now are making the declaration that this is the end of Call of Duty. I personally I felt it personally. I'm falling off of Call of Duty. So when they start saying it, I resonate with it. I go, that makes sense because that's how I'm experiencing it. But then there's tweets going all over the internet, you know, combating this narrative. And one of the major pieces they hammer home is that, you know, all these streamers that are saying it, they're not a part of the community. You know, it's us that are a part of the community that get it. And it's like, okay, with anything, there's going to be a cult following. And even if they're spoon feeding you crap, there's going to be people that are blindly buying it. But my explanation or the foundation of my position or claim of why this Call of Duty has fallen off, how many times can they sell you Nuketown before you're just like, I played this. Like, I played it. It's like every version of the game has the same crap, better guns. It's not. It's the same thing. Your controller vibrates the same way.
I think it's worse now.
Go on that, Doug, because you were explaining you're the one that played the most recent version of Call of Duty. I haven't even given it that.
I didn't want to buy it. I had no plans to buy it, but when you get the Ultimate Game Pass, it's free to play. So I was like, screw, like I'll play it. I've heard it's absolute shit, but I'll play it. It is absolute shit. So I always used to play hardcore. Yeah, it's not like I'm great, but it's not like I'm terrible. Like I'm not a noob. Call of Duty is Call of Duty. Nothing really changes in it, and that's what a lot of people love.
Never changes.
But like this is just the most absurd Call of Duty ever, because the people that are playing it are the people that are just way too much time on their hand. They've already unlocked everything, or they've just spent a ton of money. And the new fucking sliding shit, you can slide across the map while shooting a gun. So what people are doing is they unlock the 100-round mag and they're just slide and blindly shoot and they kill everybody. It's so dumb. The zombies is outrageous how complex it is. But the zombies is still fun. Like, it's not bad, but the actual multiplayer, which is why I used to always buy Call of Duty, sucks. So I started playing Battlefield, which is also just disappointing because it used to be awesome, but at least I enjoy that better than the new piece of crap Call of Duty.
I'm trying to remember what the most recent Call of Duty is that I would play. The zombies. It's the one where like you have to, of course, unlock all the different rooms, but there's like
that doesn't help.
Doug. Let me finish. There's like if you go far enough down the, I guess, unlocking. There's like blimps in the sky you got to shoot down. The whole thing's so
that's
dumb.
The one from that's the pre-pandemic what was that? That was the
Black Ops Cold War.
Cold War, yes. Because that's the last one
War?
I bought too.
I have no idea, dude. I stopped playing after Ghosts.
Yeah. Oh, either way, you know what? I think you're right. You are right.
Yep.
That was good, and it was fun because it was really complex, and you have to partner with people online to do this whole thing. And it was a mission, gave you something to accomplish. It was fun. But back to like Doug said about this new one, they're overcomplicating it as well. It's like stick to the basics. I mean, go back to that first building, the original Nazi zombies.
Just guns in a mystery box.
What was it? 4 doors?
Yep.
Like 4 doors and a mystery box. Keep it simple. And the fun about that is like you are really playing for how far you can go.
You're playing for pride at that point. That's really what you're playing for.
Yeah. Did you ever play the best one? And again, this is telling you the evolution of it, because I think there was a peak and we're beyond it. But did you ever play the zombies where I think it was Black Ops 1, where it was a movie theater? And you had to run out like you're at some point you're lapping this theater and you could zap up to
that was Black Ops 2, I think.
I think it was 2.
It was Black Ops.
I remember doing that one in
also
your
owned that
basement
too.
Yes, that was the best, dude.
I owned them up to Cold War because after Cold War, it just like you said, like that one Cold War wasn't too bad, but then it got a little weird with the blimps. Everything after that, like it was impossible to actually play zombies. And then I used to love, like you said, they just gave you OG zombies. Like Fortnite has brought back OG Fortnite and people are loving it. Bring back the OG zombies.
There's a truth to that. Like Fortnite, man, do they keep getting off the reservation. Like we keep making jokes with trains. You got these super swords, all this crazy shit. And then they're like, all right, viewer counts going down, 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 down. How do we bring them back? OG Fortnite. Everybody comes back. It's like,
bring back the original battle bus.
Here's what's sad. When Call of Duty starts experiencing that, so here's Fortnite. All right, we're changing it. We're getting so far away from the game. We're losing viewers. How do we get the viewers back? Go back to what works. What does Call of Duty do? We're getting weirder. We're losing people. How do we change this? Let's become Fortnite. And we just create a battle royale. Because instead of analyzing...
You mean their Warzone? Is that what you're talking about?
Well,
yeah, but do you know what Warzone is? It's a battle royale game style.
Actually, the reason they came up with Warzone was because of PUBG. That would
PUBG because of Apex. No, you're missing.
PUBG was like,
it literally came out at the same time as Apex.
They came out with Warzone because PUBG took off, and then that's
what PUBG was around so much longer than Fortnite and Just so you know, PUBG was out probably like half a decade at least before Warzone came out.
But that's
Just
why
so you know.
Call of Duty
So
came out
PUBG
with
was
Warzone.
out. Then Fortnite comes out and starts getting really popular. Apex comes out and is neck and neck competing with Fortnite with just because it's a new version of a battle royale game. And so Warzone came out literally within like 2 months of it. It was carrying the momentum of Apex. So Apex is the reason they entered that world. And Apex has fallen off. Like, there were a few of your friends that became like convicted to Apex and you couldn't get them back. Like, all right, dude, that got old quick. Like, come on back. Like, no, this is it. This is it. And your one or two friends are lost in that world. But that one fell off quick. But because there was such a hot momentum around battle royale games, Call of Duty abandoned everything that it was to be Call of Duty and tried to take over this space. And for all of the guys that liked battle royale but are I'm a big boy, I'm too big, I'm big for Fortnite, then their pinheaded ass just got absorbed to Warzone. And when the game is so shallow and boring, you can only keep them glued for so long. And you keep selling them the same crap for long enough, and now that's fallen off. And they're sitting there scratching their head like, what do we do next?
You go play Halo because Halo supremacy.
Halo
happy.
Infinite. Halo
You guys
Infinite.
sound not happy about these games. I'm very happy with my game. My video game is still my video game.
Well, Will, do you play Master Chief or do you play the Infinite?
Either.
Okay, because Infinite, when it first came out, I thought it was garbage, but they've done a lot of improvements to it recently.
It's
fun.
fantastic. It's fantastic. It doesn't have a battle royale though, so I'm so thankful they didn't do that. I couldn't imagine the battle royale in Halo.
A Halo battle
it'd be
royale would
terrible.
suck.
Yeah, I mean, Call of Duty, I think it's fallen off for a number of reasons, even without the battle royale. I think the battle royale, honestly, at the time was a smart choice for them. You have to chase a trend because everything else about it, like the multiplayer aspect of it, was going down. They were overbearing with the microtransactions, which was really pissing off the community at the time.
Dude, how about this? Your biggest problem, if the last years of my Call of Duty, if what I'm logging into to play is prop hunt, I want to become a desk or a rock, and I'm just going to sit here and play hide and go seek. If that's the peak excitement your game gives me, oh, dude, let's play Call of Duty to hide as a mop. Well, I think you've lost what makes you exciting.
That's almost like the perfect segue into Gen Alpha. No, it's no, I mean, like, I miss Call of Duty back. Like, I remember like the Modern Warfare trilogy, 1, 2, and 3. Not even just the multiplayer, like the campaigns about it. I just remember how controversial like No Russian was, like back in the day, right? Like that was like the biggest video game shooter controversy probably of like the last 2 decades now. And now like the only controversy Call of Duty ever has is like, oh, they just try to monetize all their gameplay and everything you could buy in the game. The games come out, they're pretty lackluster. Every year they're $70, but you might get a $40 worth of material in a game. You know me with Fortnite. Like, I don't play Fortnite, but I respect that the hustle that it does. It's like it's a free to play game, but everything that you could buy in the game is worthwhile to the people playing it. Like, they're offering it for free, and they're just hoping that the community feeds into it without like trying to like really like, oh no, you got to buy the game first, and the maps suck. Oh yeah, there's a battle royale. Oh, but you could buy the loot box, and the loot box is what, $20 a month, and it probably is dog shit with a couple of skins. Nothing ever really new. It became such a capitalistic company and franchise where you're never going to get the old days of Call of Duty anymore. You're never going to get that. The Modern Warfare 1, 2, and 3 heyday. I wasn't really a Black Ops, but I know Black Ops 1, 2, and 3. They've got a huge devout following from multiplayer to the campaign. I keep harping on No Rushing because I just remember like how like formative that was to me as a kid. Be like, wow, like video games will really go to a measure like that, to where
No Rushing.
It was probably the most controversial mission in any Call of Duty to date.
Alex, it's the one we've talked about. It's the one where they go,
watch
no
what you say.
Russian,
Watch
you're
what you
walking
say.
through an airport. Remember, like they updated the game as soon as it came out
Gotcha.
to put a
You're
disclaimer.
saying no rushing.
No Russian.
No Russian.
No,
Yeah, no Russian.
Like, the language.
no
like
Russian.
the low person.
Right. So,
Like
he leaves the, he leaves a elevator, says no Russian, and then the mission starts. That caught national news by storm.
Yes.
That was
Oh my
like
God,
the
it
biggest story, you know. And I remember the game when you start the campaign, it gives you the option right when you start it. There is a mission in the game that you are able to skip. It won't affect the story at all, and they lie to you because it does. That
It
is the most
absolutely
integral
does.
mission in the
Mhm.
story because it kicks off the events to the rest of the game. Like
Yeah.
it needs to happen. Huge issue in the gaming world. Still to this day, remember it. Remember the first time vividly.
Well, and why did it have such a drastic impact? Look at the timing of it too.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no.
Like it's an airport at a time where tragedies at airports were even more extreme.
Right. And the thing was too, it wasn't like it happened in the game to just have like shock value. It was shock value, but it was purposeful to the story. You're like, oh, I get it. I get it. Why the mission happened this way and the events that happened right after. They're like made sense.
Well, and you know what's funny is going to like Reddit, you know, because a lot of this conversation is going on the internet right now about how Call of Duty has fallen off, and so many of the comments are like, "Yeah, the terrible story writing started to begin with the game Ghost," and I sat there and I was like, "That was one of my favorite campaigns."
Yeah, Ghost campaign.
to me
Ghost was the last like okay one.
I
then after
really
that, it
enjoyed
really
the
fell off.
campaign. And I can tell you
And the
wholeheartedly,
zombies mission, like it wasn't zombies, it was like kill these beings and do
I'm
whatever.
gonna talk
That
ab-
was fun too.
I'm going to talk about Ghost a little bit. I didn't dislike Ghost, but Ghost was when the Call of Duty, I think,
changed.
Yeah.
Departed
community-
from war. Like
it wasn't even
everything-
necessarily that. It was the way they advertised the game. They advertised it's like what Halo 5 did. Halo 5 screwed up big. It was the advertisement of the game. I remember they were like, oh, like the fish, like they react to you in the water, and it doesn't do that at all. But like they were advertising features in this game to the community, and it did none of that. It did none of that. So everybody overlooked, like you said, it wasn't a bad game, but it was promised and pitched as this pinnacle, the next evolution in Call of Duty. And it was like, this is the worst Call of Duty in 5 years.
Yeah, I see. And it got so much blowback that you could tell the way they ended the game that there was going to be further, iterations of that story. And they totally abandoned it because of the backlash. And like I said, to me, that was one of the last campaigns that I played all the way through because I was captivated with the story and I want to see where it goes. And by the end of it, when it ended, I was satisfied with the story arc and how it ended and sat there with hope that more would come. But also, what made Call of Duty up until that point? It was living this period.
Right.
Like my dad would come, like when video games were brand new, right? Like my dad didn't have video games. He bought me a video game and he'd occasionally watch me. He would want to watch me play Call of Duty because he had interest in the period, the gun type, experiencing it with me. All of that left, with age and everything else, sure. When Ghost comes out, I'm in college. Pretty tough for Pops to pop a squat on the futon and watch with me while I play. But at the same time, it wasn't that same thing. An older generation isn't going to find affection simply off of the artistic interpretation of this period, World War II. I get to live you playing World War II. Now it's just fantastical ghost, merchants.
Alex, too, the guns, they can't even call them what their names are.
Yeah.
Like they come up with fake names for all of them now.
It's an iteration of the
Yeah.
M16 and the MP5.
Yeah,
but like what the gun is, but it's like they can't call it that.
They can't.
They got to
call
make it look a little bit different.
Speaking of which, hanging in the wings, silent. What are platform us here? What are your thoughts on Call of Duty?
Look, I love Call of Duty. I've been playing it since like the early 2000s.
You look like you play Call of Duty.
Right, a lot.
It does. It looks like your games are.
And by the way, Modern Warfare 2, No Russian was also a very, very important mission to the story point. I'm glad you brought that up because if you did skip it, you basically the campaign made no sense if you skipped that mission. And so totally agree with you on that. And I can't believe how in 2009 that was so controversial. But if you do a mission like that now, nobody would even bat an eye or care.
Yeah,
Right.
seriously.
Like the difference is astonishing. It really is what like 15 years can do. Really, like it's wild to just think about. Look, with Call of Duty, I think you have to always lower your expectations with Call of Duty because I know their hype machine is so hard. The way they hype these new Call of Duties, you're like, oh, new movement, oh, new way to crouch, oh, new way to shoot. Let me explore it. Let me check it out. And then, and then you're like, this is lame, And then they recycle the old maps, and then there's like the skins and all that. And I understand why they do what they do. To me, Call of Duty has become about the squad, the boys, the team.
Yep.
Yes.
If you're with the right squad, you're with the right team, you're gonna enjoy the Call of Duty no matter which one it is. Like I had Vanguard. Vanguard was probably the biggest disappointment in the last like 4 or 5 years in Call of Duties. But because I was playing with my boys, I didn't even care. We're spending time, we're chatting together, we're shooting shit, just like having fun, having a blast. And that's honestly what it boils down to for me. Because if you think about it nowadays, like we're all getting older, so our reflexes and reactions are much slower. Some of these kids are too sweaty, man. They be spending
They are,
all day on the
sweaty.
Call of Duty lobbies, and you're gonna get cooked in like 2 minutes, and it's just not fun, But if you're with your squad, you'll get a little bit less cooked, or maybe even dominate in some cases in some maps, So you definitely have that to look forward to,
No, I appreciate that. Doug, were you trying to jump in?
Yeah, because Silent brought up some points. So like, kind of like what you said too, though, Alex. Like you talk about after Ghost kind of everything changed. That's when I feel like they just started repeating everything again. And so like clearly they're just like, let's try and repeat what worked then. But like then they go in this new Call of Duty, which is another Black Ops, because again, they don't want to call it anything new. They want to go with what everybody knows. That Omni movement is the worst thing they've ever created. Because Silent Bro, it's like, oh, let's have this new movement, this new whatever. This new movement is what makes the game suck so hard, in my opinion. Because unless you have like 100-round magazine and a gun that can quickly shoot in a right, like at hip fire, like you're going to lose every match. That's what it's divulged into. And too, Silent brought up like, oh, Call of Duty or the live, like used to play and talk with people and everything. That's actually why I got Game Pass. My one buddy plays Call of Duty. So like, he'd be like, hey, you want to play Call of Duty? I'm like, all right, yeah, sure. Like, so that's part of the reason I'm playing is someone else is playing it. It's kind of like bringing me back to my childhood, being able to play live again with someone. I'm just hating the game. It's not as enjoyable as it used to be at all. So Silent nailed it. Like Silent was talking, I'm like, oh, I got give Silent his props. He brought up a few of those points that like I was thinking about this whole time.
Well, and again, that's why it's like a roller coaster arc, right? Because there was a peak, and as it came down, it wasn't. I think right now it's shit, but it didn't just like go from peak to shit. It was a slow burn. And so if I look at Ghost as kind of like the turning point, it got more fantastical, but not so fast that it lost me. Like Advanced Warfare, I still liked it. I didn't think it was the best one, but I'm like, okay, you've done all the my grandfather drove a tank in World War II. So my dad was obsessed with watching that because he got to experience what his dad did. I got to see Modern Warfare. I got to see what we're doing right now, Black Ops. What's the peak of warfare advancement right now? And then we get to see Advanced Warfare. We got to play with what the system knows they've got or are currently developing, but you don't really know we got yet.
Different, at least.
And so, is going to zombies with an exosuit fantastical? Totally. Honestly, though, when I'm talking space zombies, that's the one I'm thinking of. Dude, exosuits, that shit was crazy. That also was so fun. Like, I mean, if you were to lay out like a deck of cards, all the zombies, that one I'm not picking to play right now. But there were so many waking hours playing exosuit zombies. It was a blast. So again, I didn't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that's why this is such a this is such a broadcasted topic right now, because I think like the human hive, we've all kind of been feeling the weight get heavier and heavier and heavier, and the air's left the room and we're all looking at each other like nobody can breathe anymore. All right, we're out. So it's kind of like it took a long time to get there, but we're also finally kind of all in agreement. It took some of us longer than others, but we're all sitting here going, yeah, I think we're all done with Call of Duty, because even then, what did Silence say? Go ahead and lower your expectations. It's Call of Duty. Because what are you doing? You're signing up for nothing but playing with your friends. And so many of, if you're looking at the populace of your friends, only a couple of them can you swindle like Silent. So many of the others, they've got this ego amongst them. I'm too cool for Fortnite. You got Halo, I get it. My bias is Fortnite. So if I've got all my friends that are like, some of them are like, I'll play Fortnite with you. And then others are like, nah, dude, that's baby stuff. The gritty's baby stuff. I play Call of Duty. The only time in the last 4 years you ever saw me pick up Call of Duty was to play with those friends. And guess what, bud? You lost them too. So now you've got nothing binding me to your platform. And again, it's heartbreaking to such a real and such a pillar game franchise. If all of those guys are like, Fortnite's too baby for me, and then they get 5 years older and they go, it's not that bad. It's actually kind of fun. It's kind of fun. Now you've really lost the battle, because now people are willing to overlook the colors and the gwitty and totally plug in to this game. And so many of my friends that have left have come back. And so where Fortnite gets fantastical and you go, all right, you lost me, like the exosuit, right? When Fortnite goes, yo, 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 we got M&M and Ice Spice Islands that you could fight on. Literally, this was the last chapter. The last chapter, I go, you couldn't pay me to play it. You couldn't pay me. This is crap. Guess what? I played it, and it was a recreation of one of my favorite old chapters ever. It was like the Grotto. If anybody remembers it, we literally, all my friends for the last 7 years have a Fortnite group chat to hey, if we're going to get on and play, it's called the Grotto Gang. You literally just change the name to Eminem's Cave. I'm in. Call it whatever you want. Call it Hello Kitty World. I'm in. So even when it's you've gone way too off the reservation, you're not getting, you still get me. They know what works. They've got the working equation. So I think Call of Duty's failure and where they've lost the battle is the community, the few pillars of our friends that were holding down your community and bringing me back to you on the occasion, reluctantly, just to spend time with them. Well, you lost them, which means you lost everybody else.
I tried to get you, Alex. I was one of those few people still hanging on to Call of Duty. I was. And they lost me. I mean, I used to love it. Call of Duty and Battlefield were my games. And Battlefield lost me when they made their maps less interactive. You couldn't destroy a building anymore or whatnot. And then Call of Duty lost me when they added all this new crazy ass shit. So I'm with you, Alex. Now I might end up I'm going back to Fortnite once I'm done with my paid Ultimate subscription, where now it's I'm just trying to get my money's worth from these games I don't own or I can't play for free.
Silent, what are your thoughts on that? And wrap up your thought as well.
Yeah, on that too, you got to remember, when you were playing Call of Duty in 2009, your life was way less stressful than in 2019, where you have bills and rent and work and all that, So obviously that also is added to the layer of you trying to enjoy the game, because when you were, 16, 19, 20, in your early, late teens, early 20s, you could sit there and just grind, get really good at the game and just go to Prestige 10, but now as an adult and, mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s, you don't have time anymore like that. I mean, at least I don't. So it's you're going to experience the game differently. And like I said, it's just not Call of Duty used to be this kind of grind that you could have the solo campaign, right? Where you can grind that by yourself. And that was really well executed by the developers, especially all of the Infinity Ward campaigns and the Triarch campaigns. Even the Triarch campaigns were really good too. Because, it would always be an Infinity Ward Call of Duty, then a Triarch Call of Duty, then an Infinity Ward and Activision. And then when Activision and Blizzard merged, then it just kind of started all going downhill after that.
Yeah, I was about to say.
And I think that was also a pivotal point too. When Activision and Blizzard merged, like that was like the beginning of the end
That
of
was
Call of
huge,
Duty.
man.
Well,
Because
I'm
that was
disappointed we neglected that for this conversation.
I know,
Definitely
right?
hammer that home, Silent, because
right.
that's like the biggest piece of this. It was a splitting and reemerging of this company too many times.
Exactly. And the skins, right? Like, remember, the skins and this whole like pay to win or this whole exclusive thing that they did was obviously just for the money. They didn't care about doing it for the players, you know, like bringing in Snoop Dogg, and Nicki Minaj is cool in Warzone. Don't get me wrong. It's hilarious and it's cool. But it's at the end of the day, it's just a way for them to milk you out of your money, you know? And that's just what it is. You also just have to realize something very important too. At the end of the day, before these studios were giants, they were putting maximum effort into these games. Now they don't have to because they know there's enough of people that enjoyed those maximum effort games from 20 years ago that they're going to buy the new games no matter what because they want that nostalgia. They want that maximum effort Call of Duty from 20 years ago. But like I said, the reality is, unfortunately, it's a for-profit thing now. It's not a maximum effort. Here you go, guys. Have fun. This is going to be a blast game. No pun intended. Like, it's going to be amazing. You know, that's what the studios were focusing on before, right? But obviously now it's like, hey guys, we're gonna give you Snoop Dogg. Please give us $6.99 for Snoop Dogg and another $6.99 for Nicki, please. Thank you very much. And we're gonna give you Warzone. It's free. You can play it, but it's gonna be full of really sweaty people, and the matchmaking is gonna suck. We're gonna put you in lobbies where a dude has a 5.0 KD and you have a 0.5 KD. So you're gonna die 20 times in a row because you're an adult now and you don't have time to sit and grind. While this kid that's 16 and has enough time to grind and gets his 5.0 KD is gonna smoke you all game. But like I said, if you got your squad, you might have a chance.
See, I gotta tell you, you're bringing up an even better point. That's one thing I've always appreciated over Halo and like games like Fortnite over anything else is my competitive edge in this match has no binding on how many other hours I put in before this. Like you could pick up a game of Halo today or in 2 years, and however much time you put in has no impact on the advantage you have in that round. It's just basic skill. And that's why I love your point too. How much of it is you want to make a good game versus how much you're trying to make money. Will you bring it to your rapping thought? Because I know you've had some things you wanted to jump in with too.
I'm just saying, son of a bitch, they lost Doug. They had Doug. He was he was carrying the torch, the beacon of hope.
I would be trying to get Alex to play Call of Duty over Fortnite, but now that dream is
He's
dead.
like, son of a bitch, I'm out. I'm out.
Son of a bitch, I'm a Fortniter.
No, I just miss the days when I could just rock the UMP 45 silence on terminal. Do that all night with the boys.
Oh, yeah.
Miss that shit.
What's the other one? I was thinking of like Sandstorm. Like, what's the one with the plane crash in the middle of like?
In the classic Call of Duty.
Rust?
Are you talking about that?
Rust. Rust
Well, there's
is
Rust.
popping.
Yeah,
Rust is just like in the sand.
I know which one you're talking about.
It's like an abandoned
plane
factory
with the cave.
with the wing coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Search and Destroy on that map.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Shipment was my favorite map.
Shipment, another one, another classic.
Shipment is better than Nuketown.
Yeah,
so again, wrapping thoughts
agree.
for Call of Duty falling off.
I just Silent hit a nail on the head when Treyarch and Activision, when it stopped being them competing against one another, because it used to be the Modern Warfare series versus the Black Ops series.
Yeah.
That was what Call of Duty was. The instant that went away, the fight went.
Wow.
The fire went out. And
so can I ask you this? Is that not a sentiment to the beauty of, our version of capitalism and how we interpret our system? It's got its flaws, and we exploit it and explain it all the time. But the truth is, can we agree that's the one beautiful element of competition? The selling point to capitalism is when you have straight up competition, you maximize the greatest quality product because competition requires you to beat the other product.
it's like Harvey Dent said, you either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain.
Oh my God, yes, Will.
It's Call of Duty. Why do you think I got out of it so many years ago? Like, it's still stuck with Halo. At Halo at its core, it's still Halo. They've only had like one flub, and it was ironically, like I said, like Halo 5, like it completely screwed up the advertisement. Screwed up the whole game. That alone.
What's nice about Halo is you start with the same guns and you just find them throughout the map, and it does, like Will said, come down to just pure skill. Whereas Call of Duty, it's oh, you're paying, you're going to get all this free stuff right off the get-go and have a competitive edge over everybody because you're starting with your preset class. That is why Halo is
at
like
the same
separate.
time, Halo has
Well, real
always
quick, Alex, I just want to say one more thing. Sorry. Where Halo lost their edge was they were the first to allow the free split screen online multiplayer.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And then Halo followed suit. So you could have a buddy over and for free, not having them log into their account, play split screen with you. Halo started that. And then both Halo and Call of Duty got rid of that feature. Now you have to have an Xbox Live account if you want to do split screen. That's where Halo lost me. Halo has stayed the same in regards to the gameplay.
Well, because you're cheap, Doug. That actually has no
you have
impact
someone
on anybody
over.
else.
Someone might have a Playstation. Someone might not even
You
have
would
an
be
Xbox
surprised.
or
In the Halo
any of it.
community, that is a big deal.
Yeah,
Halo community split screen, anything, them getting rid of that was a big deal.
that was why
of
Halo
course people
was so
complain
popular.
about it, but that's not the reason Halo fell off. I don't think
is.
Halo fell off. Halo,
It did for a bit.
Halo
until
is
Infinite.
sold to the core people, and those core people will always and only play Halo. The problem I find with Halo is I have this nostalgic love for the whole game. My favorite will always be the Master Chief Edition because I can make a multiplayer lobby of just a grab bag of my favorite types of games and play those across the different versions. But I only do that so often. I can only do it so much because I think the problem with Halo today is the only people that play Halo today are the people that have played Halo for 20 years. And they're so insanely good. And I'm not bad at video games. Like my hand-eye coordination is strong enough that I can play games. If we played Fortnite right now, I'd carry your ass to the finish line. I would get smoked in Halo. And I've played Halo since the first version in the first Xbox. So I'm not somebody that's a total noob to this game, but the people in those lobbies are at such a sweaty level that like it's almost if on a day where I play with, and this is different, you're not going to resonate with this, but if on a day I played a night with you and the best I could achieve that whole night of gaming is the middle of the leaderboard, that ain't fun to me when 1 out of 5 rounds I'm winning the victory royale over 100 folks. Like, again, what am I doing this for beyond hanging out with my friends, but that little bit of endorphin fun that I have?
But see,
I don't get it in Halo as much as I did.
But that's why, like Call of Duty, Battlefield, you do unlock guns, attachments,
Right.
stuff like that as you play. So that makes even having a bad game a little better because you're using the same gun, you're unlocking stuff for it as you play. That's where Halo and Fortnite doesn't have that. So you have a bad game or a bad series of games in Halo and Fortnite, you feel like you've accomplished nothing. But with Call of Duty and Battlefield, you at least unlock something, and it makes you maybe feel a little better about your crap performance.
Right. Well, and again, it's I've had rounds in Halo. I've been the 15-year-old that sounds like a 9-year-old on an Xbox Live server that just wrecked the whole lobby. And some 30-year-old's like, "What are you, 2? Shut up, kid." And I'm like, "I just kicked your ass, baby girl." And it's just this whole chirping fest. And
15-year-old, I fuck your bitch.
so it's like I've experienced Halo in that, like, talking of endorphins, like I've experienced it at its high where it's like, oh yeah, look at that KD, look who's running the leaderboard. And it feels like the last 5 to 10 years, but really last 5 years. That's like, oh, it's so hard to achieve that. And maybe it's because all I am doing is playing Master Chief. So the only people in that lobby are the people dedicated to dominating that
you gotta
server.
play Halo Infinite.
Maybe.
The beauty with Halo is like the Master Chief Collection to Infinite, you get 2 different games, but they're all still the same thing. Call of Duty, it's lost its identity.
Yeah.
Along the way, it lost its identity, is trying to borrow others.
I like that.
Halo, still Halo. Like, it still feels like Halo. Of all the games, there's only been
Totally.
2 where I was like, yeah, it doesn't really feel like Halo. Master Chief Collection and Infinite, I feel like I'm 15 again. Still.
Yes.
So good.
Real quick, Alex, in the comments there, Brad Richardson said these types of battle type games have ran their course. Only so many ways to fight battle. I mean, he isn't wrong there. There is only so many ways you can recreate the same thing, and that's kind of at the point we're at, you know.
Mhm.
You're right.
Exactly.
You're right. We have fully exhausted this game type. And truthfully, like I've never played PUBG, but it's kind of like the Grand Theft Auto of Fortnite. There's so many things you can do, and like there's so much mobility in that game that fandom is never going away. So PUBG isolated from this comment. When I talk about Battle Royale, like, I'm sorry, dude, I'm walking past anybody that wants to have a talk about Apex. Like, you are a dinosaur. We're leaving you in behind us. So when I look at the Battle Royale landscape, that's owned. That's owned by a kid's game. And I'll happily bolster the fact my favorite game is a kid's game. Hey, that's fine with me. But when it comes to multiplayer, that used to be Call of Duty in so many different ways. And they've lost, like you said, their identity in such a degree that now it's a grab bag to anybody. And Call of Duty, their saving grace would be re-establishing themselves in the campaign. Like if they could come out with a campaign that's got everybody talking.
They actually did briefly. They did.
Which one?
When they redid the Modern Warfare series like a few years ago, it was like in 2021, they made Modern Warfare. That campaign was good.
It was.
Doug, they fucked up the Modern Warfare 2 campaign, though, so bad. So bad. It was like 6 hours. It was like 6 hours that left on a shitty cliffhanger. It pissed off a lot of people. And the first one was like good. Even I was like, hell yeah, maybe. Nah, they screwed it up. They did. Like, all it took was the second one. The whole community was like, so quick. So they tried. They did try, but they couldn't get out of their own way.
Wow.
Franchise couldn't get out of their own way.
And again, now, like the captain, they'll go down with the ship. It is what it is.
Hey, you know what? And you know what? I can't even blame them. Next year, they're going to spend $70 on the same fucking game. So, like, we can have this entire discourse. It's like, I know there's going to be millions of people who are going to spend $70 on the next fucking game.
But see, I would rather, now knowing that because the way Call of Duty is now, it's owned by Microsoft. All you got to do is get Game Pass and you can play it for free. And honestly, I'll just do that. Test it out. I would never pay $70 for a Call of Duty game again. Yeah. I'd rather pay for Game Pass, try it out, and then decide if it's worth like keeping or not. Or even with Game Pass, you don't even need to buy the damn game. But definitely would never actually just straight up buy a Call of Duty game again.
No, that's a good point.
It's gone. It's gone.
I agree.
All right, moving on to our final topic here. We really extended this episode, so thank you to everybody that joined us.
Hey,
Brad
it's
and
the
everybody
last
else.
show of the year. Let's make it a fun one.
That's right. And kudos to everybody that's jumping in the comments and, like, again, add another dynamic to the perspective here. We appreciate you doing that, especially Brad and Ricky and everybody else. So, going into the last topic here, for Gen Alpha, apparently, learning to read is becoming a privilege. So teachers are reflecting about over the last 10 years, the students have really struggled to focus. Increasingly, younger kids were not nailing basic reading skills before third grade, a crucial window. Those who miss it have a tough road ahead in middle school and high school. Even adept readers in their tweens and teens have become afraid of complex or extended reading tasks and are more comfortable with short texts or bit-sized summaries. IDK. This is not unusual. Across the U.S., kids are struggling to read. Last year, reading performance for fourth grade readers hit its lowest level since 2005. And teachers expect that number to keep going down.
Wait, 2005 is just around when we would have been in, like a year after we would have been in fourth grade, by the way.
LMAO.
They're almost as dumb as us.
Bunch of dumbasses out there just emoting. They don't know how to read. They know how to emote.
So I don't like you pointing that out, Doug.
I just had to because...
What do we have to talk about now? Look at those idiots. They're as dumb as we were.
All right, we're going to wrap this one up. Peace.
Yeah. See you guys next week. Peace.
Well, you said it. I'm like, I have to point this out because that's too funny.
Am I the dumbass?
Well, guys, reporting to you live.
Well, that was
Gen Alpha's as dumb as the millennials.
Well, that was Call of Duty. Am I right? Oh shit! Continue. Fuck you.
Ben derailed us all.
You're right. We can't read. We get lost in short sections.
No, I can read. It's the reading comprehension. I read 2005. I didn't comprehend. That's when you were also in third grade, dummy.
He was reading. He's like 2005. Fucking idiots. Let's just keep going.
Some idiots 20 years ago. Oh.
Me? Oh shit.
There has never been a golden age for reading scores in America. The record high, though, was in 2017 when 30% of the U.S. fourth graders passed this national exam, where it was just 5% higher than most recent results. So what are we learning from Gen Alpha? The long-term implications of something that happened 5 years ago, Fauci's fantasy, had long-term dire implications. And Senator Bill Cassidy says that we are at risk of having an entire generation of children, those who were in their prime learning years during Fauci's fantasy, fail to become productive adults if reading proficiency does not improve. Because again, they're worried about this closing window. Here's what's wild. And maybe this goes in line with our little discovery that they're as dumb as we were, because they go in the 1980s and 1990s, we went with teaching whole language. A teacher practicing this approach repeatedly shows students a set of words using photos to help them remember the meanings. And then that evolved. Coming from that was the evolution from the 60s, where kids are given 3 cues: somatic, like the word and its meaning; syntactic, which is how the word is used in the sentence; and then graphonic, which is letters and sounds. And what do they want to resort back to? Apparently, what was used in the 1930s, which seems the most rudimentary and something we would have seen even earlier, was how instructors focus on teaching students to identify the individual sounds of each letter, and the sound they make alone. So a C makes a k, an H makes a h, and a CH makes a ch. It's like that's what we're reverting back to.
For
what
that
did we
grade
go to?
too? For that grade? I mean, that's okay for like a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, but when you're in third grade, that is not how we should be.
God damn it, Doug! I was doing that in 2005.
We're sitting here, I think, blinded in our stupid lens of America. Like, Silent, what are your thoughts from above? What do you make of this?
I mean, honestly, I'm not really surprised, because if you think about it, most of the younger generations don't need to read. They're just like, hey, Siri, hey, Alexa, read this for me. You know what I'm saying? Like they actually are growing up with that technology available to them, to where the voice assistants can just read the whole thing for them, you know? So I get that's where we're trending towards, and that's where the stats are showing we're trending towards, and that's where we're going. But again, I'm not surprised, because if you think about it, remember when teachers used to make fun of us and make us memorize mathematical timetables and all that, and would say, you're never going to carry a calculator in your pocket when you grow up? Were they wrong?
I am planning it in the back of my head.
Like,
I'm going to give you applause for that, Silent.
you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I understand why people are freaking out. Don't get me wrong. Reading is a very important skill to have and to know. But realistically, do you really need to know how to read if Siri or Alexa or Google Assistant or ChatGPT is going to read it for you and you can just listen?
Yeah.
We didn't even need to learn how to use a calculator. You could literally ask ChatGPT or Siri the equation.
Right. That's
just
right.
Speak
That's
it.
Mm-hmm.
We should be able to just, and again, this comes back to the Gen Alpha privilege, but maybe the test should be, can you read your test to Siri? Question 1.
IDK.
Right. Instead of teaching people how to read, maybe teach them how to ask ChatGPT or Google the correct search or the correct prompt to get the most optimal result or the most accurate one, or to get the result in the quickest way,
Right.
Like, okay, Google this, put quotation marks on a particular thing that you're looking for, and click the first 3 results, skip the 2 ads that are on top. Things like that, little things that you can teach in class that can make you a much better researcher than most people actually know. These little tips and tricks that will make you able to write much more efficient papers and do much more efficient research.
I will give that to our teachers. They kind of told us sites to go to find information we'd need.
Yes.
Plus, like being in school, you get these certain resources. So they tell you use this, and then they'd show you the websites you could use to get the bibliography, like where you had to
gave Doug a
put it
B.
in a certain form. Well, no, Wikipedia we weren't allowed to use. Now
Yeah, we
I
weren't
would
either.
argue it's much
So
more reliable.
The trick is the way I got around to using Wikipedia was just go to the bottom and just go to the sources that Wikipedia used and then use those sources for your sources. That's how I did it. I would get all my information from Wikipedia, but instead of quoting with Wikipedia, I would just go directly to the source and then
I just quoted Wikipedia and
put that in an
solved my
MLA bibliography generator and done. Cited source from the source.
Well, one of the comments I want to highlight, as Brad Richardson said, a large reason behind Gen Alpha's inability of reading is because of the screen time and not reading actual text on paper, and the ability of listening to these ebooks. So there's no need to read. That's an interesting, point to bring up, because one of the other concerns raised in the article here is, as Silent's saying, maybe instead of teaching them to read, teach them more efficient prompts so they can feed to the supercomputer and give them the answer. Or, as Brad Richardson kind of flirts with the idea, they don't need to know how to read, just how to find it on Spotify and listen to the ebook. Really, you just want to spark the interest so they know what to look for and they could find it. However, while we might have this over-romanticized relationship with the written word, there's major concern that there's this falling out of love with the written word by the kids today.
Yeah.
And again, one of the things I've always argued is there's a balance to this. I could see the alarm, because what will happen is there's history. There's a whole, we're talking probably 3 centuries of human existence that is not on your Spotify. So you will have to heavily rely on somebody's ability to interpret it into the medium at which you could digest it, or you're stuck having to, even if, all the future works won't be written and you don't have to read it, you personally have to be able to be the intermediary between the old world and the new world, or rely on somebody to do that for you. So when I look at like podcasts, right? So I sit here and I sell you the Rethink Tank. You should be listening to the podcast. We have all these different shows. We have our live show. We have the podcast that comes out each week. You could join all these things. Why do I find that to have any value to you beyond SpongeBob? We're here to give you a laugh. We're here to keep you entertained. But I also have a major goal of making you think. If I'm going to make something that's long form and requires your attention for a long period of time, I want you to walk away with something valuable, or at least feel as though you did. And you may not agree with me, but I want to provide you a jungle gym where you mentally exercise yourself enough that you walk away with some sort of product beyond just mind numbing. And that's something Joe Rogan, he has a comedian on, I laugh. But then they have such a deep dialogue that it's not a soundbite. Something so extensive I can find value throughout all the fun. And so I think books were that. Between going back to when they chiseled things to when they finally got the feathered pen, not everything was a serious accounting of the historical record. Some things were artistic interpretations. Some things were a fantastical interpretation, but also embedded with truths that carried on some sort of historical fact. Like Caesar. The story of Caesar is, let's just go with Shakespeare's interpretation of Caesar. That is a historical interpretation alongside a very theatrical presentation. So I think this is that new version of that. It went from chiseling to stone to quilt on a pen to, if I could yell at the paper and it would stick with the paper, we would have done that. We didn't have that ability. Now I can yell into this black knob, and then it will care. It goes into a source that allows you to interpret it in an easier way. And now I can get everything that was in this without having to be, I can multitask. I don't have to be mindlessly locked into something where my eyes, my attention are focused on an object. Now I can fix my car while I learn about Plato's Odyssey, or, learn about the allegory of the cave. So I don't think here's the balance. I think I can interpret hundreds of hours of media, knowledge, entertainment, and education so much more than a reader 1,000 years ago, just because I can do other things while I'm digesting that. And I could speed it up so I could get it and it doesn't require as much of an exercise. I don't have to physically go through each word, interpret it with my brain, what the word means. This collection of symbols means this. Digest not just what the sentence is, but comprehend what it's trying to tell me so I could carry it through the other pages. That's an exercise. I don't have to do that. If it's just talking to me, just telling me, and I'm just following the story, and I can kind of dazzle out and come right back in, and I'm really not missing much. So I find this to be the next step in what always was. But I also feel like if we allow ourselves to get lazy, well, you don't have to do that exercise of interpreting symbols and getting its message. If we lose that, I think we're losing a development in our brain. We're just one step closer to idiocracy. So it's kind of like, we have these straps that my uncle has that movers would use to like move a couch or a fridge. Yeah. Okay.
Your uncle's a smart man.
Sure. 100 years ago, if you had to move that fridge, that would have been painstaking and it would have sucked. Putting the strap under it makes it so much lighter, makes it so much easier. But because I've made now the act of moving the fridge so much easier, if I don't find exercise elsewhere, I'm going to get weak. So I feel as though we can't allow ourselves to get that fatigue, that weakness where we get so complacent and comfortable in this new way of consuming media that we lose the muscle, the exercise of being able to comprehend extensive symbols, literature, and interpret messages in an old art that, while won't be created in the future, isn't going away and is really the only window into interpreting the past.
All I'm saying is if some kid gets a 15 kill streak and gets an EMP, all these Gen A kids are not going to know how to read shit.
Sure.
Because I'm with you. Like, started off with what? Small scribbles on a stone, to then the feather pen, writing books, writing novels, writing as much as you can. There's a reason that has lasted as long as it has, and it will continue going forward. And even though we have all these new technologies, and again, like, you don't have to go through the hassle of reading and comprehending something, there is a usefulness to be able to do so, rather than,
right,
you could put on, say, people could be listening to the show right now, and they can not actively be listening. It's just on in the background.
Right.
As anything else can be. There's not a lot of benefits to doing so. So I think of these kids that, like, what, you can't pick up a Harry Potter book and read a Harry Potter book. Like that is what, like, an exercise to a kid. Maybe sure for us, but we're grown adults. Like, we have our own things to go through. The kids that are sweaty playing Call of Duty can't put the game down just for a little bit and read, what, 2 chapters?
Right.
That's too strenuous for you. I find that ridiculous. Like, at this point now, if I was at school, I would be digging harder into that curriculum.
Guess what, though, dude?
They're not.
I'm gonna let's be real for a second. I hated reading growing up. I still don't love reading. In fact, I was not into English at all. It wasn't until I went to law school and higher education forced me to become higher sophisticated in English than math was my subject. Mm-hmm. And so, take 4th grade me. Guess what? My mind was everywhere but that book. Of course, I would rather be playing kickball. I'd rather be outside playing on the video games. I'd rather be sleeping. The amount of times I fell asleep into the book, bored as shit. Don't like it. In 9th grade, you're going to read it. No, I ain't. Guess what? I then had to become even more creative, because then I'm showing up to class because I dozed off in the middle of that book 4 times trying to read it after dinner last night, and I'm bored. So I'm not doing it. And now I have to take a test, or my dad's going to whoop my ass because I failed it. I have to take this test, and I have to talk. You're developing other skills. Kind of one of the things that Brad Richardson threw in the comments there is these kids have also lost social ability. Like they
Right.
weren't doing in-person classes. So even where I failed to do the curriculum at home, I was also exercising my mind and developing character and different skills by fake it till you make it.
Nothing.
Oh yeah, I read Catcher in the Rye.
No,
Nothing-
Cliff Notes was the
Right,
best
get
thing
creative.
ever. Oh
Nothing-
my God. I used to just screw it. Is this book or the summer reading our schools used to do?
I
All right,
remember
which
those,
book
yeah.
of these are on
didn't read
Cliff
those.
Notes? Okay, I'm doing this book because it's on Cliff Notes.
There's Doug.
I remember I bring back popcorn reading. Make these kids do popcorn reading. Embarrass these kids in front of their friends. Read the damn book.
That was the best.
Read it.
The
Mhm.
fact
Idiot.
that we're 31 and still reflect to 12th grade English with our friend from Little Rock, Arkansas, that was literally in our school for a year and never paying attention. And we lived for popcorning to Eric. And so,
Yeah, we really
Like-
did.
popcorn, Eric. And he's like, and he'd flip through and just start reading. Mrs. Butter, not the page, Eric. Page 34.
Dude, he really would confidently just start reading a line.
Yeah.
On a page, not even the right page. You just start reading. But that's what I mean. It's like, so I think I hear about these kids, and it's like, sure, like there's so many avenues.
And you know what's
where
funny?
can-
Real quick, if they did that, the kid would be embarrassed. The parent would be calling the school board. They'd be going after that teacher's head because how dare you make a sham of my kid? My kid had feelings.
But Alex,
my kid
that's
was
only-
embarrassed.
That's only if you have parents that actually care.
Doug, let's not talk over each other. But also, let's acknowledge that this is a comment being made because this is becoming the trend of all parents today.
Right.
That is that's the point I'm making.
That's-
Is
yeah.
the stereotypical Gen Alpha parent is 1000% the parent that has created and is recreating this culture that we currently experience in public schooling.
I'm just saying, like, it sounds like none of these kids have like gone through popcorn reading and had some
Exactly.
kid in the class go like, this dumbass can't read. Like, Bill's character, learn to read, idiot. You're like 15. Like,
Right.
you know, like this shouldn't. And again, that's why I said it's like, sure, there are new and more avenues in which you could learn and comprehend and not have to go through that exercise. But there is a usefulness to that exercise that at 15 you might not get. And you will fall asleep going to Catcher in the Rye, but you'll do the Cliff Notes. And sure, we all did it. Guilty as charged. But once you hit a point in life, you're like, I don't know shit and I can't read shit. You feel weird. Like you're like,
No, and if you don't, you should.
yes.
How about this? You and I work at a court. The real problem is when you got the 40-year-old that's like, I don't know what this says.
And now it's because now they're talking about it like the Gen A's, like in a sense, like, well, what can we do to accommodate them? Fuck that. Read the goddamn book.
Yes.
Like, I don't see, like, I hear that and it irritates me. The popcorn reading was a humbling thing if you were not on the right page or you couldn't read or you were like, what? Some kid in the class, what, dumbass? Like, that would come out so quick. You learn. It's like, that's okay. I should learn how to read.
Yes.
You shouldn't have to go through that to learn it or get that realization, but you should learn to read.
I agree. Silent, what are your thoughts on this thing?
The popcorn reading definitely was a wake-up call. Like if you've been slacking,
Wake up.
you know, if you've been slacking in class and not paying attention and not doing your readings before coming into class, which most students were, let's face it, you're going to get called out. And guess what you're going to do after you get called out? You're going to go home. You're going to start reading the textbook and you're going to start reading the stories because it's embarrassing when you have 30 plus people just laughing at you in a class because you're can't read, you know, you're going to change your mind. You're going to be like, shit. Like
What happens when the
get it
whole
together.
room can't read?
You know?
That's where we're getting to.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
and
not a big problem. I don't feel stupid
eventually
anymore. We're all
eventually it's gonna get to that, and then the teacher's just gonna have to roast you and grill you, and then you're all just gonna go home and learn to read.
dude.
because-
All these bachelor degree teachers, they soon can't read either. They're gonna
That's
be
what I
right.
mean. It's like we're gonna just allow and make this a normal thing that, like, well, you could just listen to the audiobook of Harry Potter.
right.
Truthfully, that's where this all comes down to.
It's heading towards that. Yeah.
Do you guys remember this guy, his dad was a president that helped him become president. He let sand people just destroy the 2 tallest buildings so they could make a whole lot of money. But he thought he was going to save the world by allowing no child left behind. We're going to keep him going. Now, what did the no child left behind policy accomplish?
Nothing.
Did that raise the standard so those kids met the standard so they didn't get left behind? No. We said all these morons down here that keep getting left behind because they're stupid, we got to lower the standard to them. And so, as proficiency standards like reading, math, and all those had to continue to go down so we could allow more in, so we could feel like we're accomplishing something. All I did was lower the standard. It didn't raise the intellect or the capacity of the populace at all. And then we're sitting here scratching our head going, why are there so many dummies? And why are the dummies teaching the dummies? Here's what I'll say, and I don't want to belabor this point too much because it's such a pinnacle of my beliefs. It finds its way in enough of these conversations. But I know as a fact of existence, those that can't do teach. Hot fact. It's true. And the higher you get up in education, the less that becomes true, right? Most professors are highly qualified. They might be drinking too much of the Kool-Aid, but at least they're sophisticated. They might be like,
They had to read a lot to get there.
yeah, they might be lost in an occult, but at least they're like sophisticated wizards. When you get to grad school, that's when you see like actual doctorate level,
The Grand Wizards.
yeah, the grand wizards. Some of them also drink the Kool-Aid and are lost, but at least they're grand wizards. No, but seriously, when you see a public school, grade school teacher, I can grab 3 of them, a handful of them, where it's like, you were too good for this job and you changed lives and you were a blessing to my development.
We all had some of
We're
those.
so thankful for you and the sacrifice you made, because it is a sacrifice. You're getting paid. That's why is the bottom of the barrel so shitty? Because what are you signing up for? We're going to pay you pennies so you can babysit someone's snot-nosed brat. We're going to disarm you of all parental powers so you could keep them in check. And the parents are going to be at your throat every becking way. And again, it all boils down to, and the compensation is nowhere near balanced to the headaches you're going to have to deal with. So all of the greats that would make a significant impact move on to just being a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. This isn't what I would choose.
How do I teach these kids?
Alex, my question to you, your point you just made, man, is do you think we need to bring back corporal punishment? Give the teachers more power over the kids? More parental powers, as you just put it?
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say, Doug.
Yeah.
No teachers should be touching kids in any capacity.
Hot take on the rethink take.
I don't even
Don't
care
touch my kids.
if it's a poke. Like, no touching. There's no touchy.
No, a poke to wake them up, I think, is acceptable.
Get a ruler.
I mean, how many of us were falling asleep in class? Come on.
Doug, how much were you falling asleep in class?
Well, he wasn't reading in class.
If it
He was
wasn't-
sleeping.
How much were teachers touching you while you were asleep
If
in
it
class?
wasn't history class, I really didn't give a shit. History was the only subject I actually.
All right, we
Yeah,
need
honestly,
to do a background.
A lot is really.
We need to do a background check on Doug's past history teachers. I think we'd find something. The man liked to sleep in history.
Oh, he said not in history.
Yeah,
Oh.
history was the only class I did sleep in.
Yeah. That's why I said a lot's making sense.
Didn't.
Yes.
With the apostrophe
I did
T
not.
for all those people that don't know how to write.
All right. But God, Doug, you suck.
You
We
want
totally
that
lost
corporal punishment?
Yeah, corporal punishment. No, don't touch the kid. But here's the problem: we also
don't
need
touch
to
the
make
kid.
a social acknowledgement that these are the parent. You are handing over parenting to the problem is it's the state. So like, how much faith do you want to put in that? As somebody that has no faith in the state, the last thing I want you to do is have parental interference in the kids. I mean, think about the rainbow teacher that's convinced she can tell your kid they're a different gender. Like that definitely parallels this same conversation where it's like, okay, I want you to be able to yell at my kid when he misbehaves, but only if I agree with it being misbehavior. Like if you're sitting there saying my kid putting his leg, okay, in the Middle East, if you put your foot on your knee like this, you're up, like you could get arrested because the bottom of your foot's exposed. So like, let's say my kid does that and you're offended by that. I don't agree with that being misbehavior. So the problem is, who gets to draw these lines? Well, what we've decided as a community is nobody gets to. Teachers don't get to parent, period. And then they're stuck with wild animals for 8 hours a day and have no ability to ground them. Literally. I don't mean figure, like just sit and just be calm. So when you strip that of them, we can't also sit here and be shocked when they're unproductive. Like how much can you do when the kid is bouncing off the walls and I also can't make him stop? But Doug wants to sit out and bring the belt out and be like, Tommy,
Gotta bring the boom. I gotta give you 5 booms for that one. I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, so I guess for me, Doug, I cannot see a world where we bring anything close to that. But
Yeah, no.
my position is also you do need to give some power back to the teachers. Silent, what were you going to say on that?
Yeah, look, we've kind of gotten over the time period of where hitting or beating someone up works, because there's a lot of studies that have showed that doesn't work. You know, you have to diplomatically reason with kids and explain to them why they're wrong and kind of like break it down into smaller pieces to where they can digest and understand why we do things and why we need to do it this way. Unfortunately, there's still going to be kids that are not going to understand, even when you become diplomatic and you know, you break things down for them. And I think the way to solve that is you have to just have them respect the authority, because a lot of kids that respect their kids would probably respect their teacher. And that's usually, you're going to have an easier time teaching kids that respect their parents, right? Because if they respect their parents, they're most probably, as a teacher, going to respect you as well.
It
And I think
worked with
that's where
Adrian
it starts.
Peterson.
Mhm.
It only happened once. You never heard it again.
Right. And and
Okay.
and the thing with that too is like it goes back to like reflecting, teaching your kids or educating them starts at home, right? And then, like you said, you're handing them out to the state for another 8 hours. But guess what? If you're doing your job at home, they're going to be fine in the 8 hours.
Yes.
You know, they're at
Good
school.
point.
And that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. Because if your
Yes.
kid is having trouble in school for 8 hours, it's probably because of you, the parent. So you got to step in as a parent and fix that kid at home so that when he goes to school, the teacher doesn't have to hit him. The teacher doesn't have to become Switzerland and be diplomatic with him and break it down and explain things to him the way it is. It's like, okay, my teacher told me to be quiet, told me to pay attention. Older than me, I respect them. I'm gonna shut the fuck up and sit down and listen and learn something. Maybe not. I don't know. But that's what I mean. It makes it much easier if you as a kid are taught that in school. When your dad comes in back home from work, he starts to tell you to do something. You don't question that. You just go and do it. If you do question that, right?
You nailed the answer in that when Doug asks, should you bring back corporal punishment? You 180 to no corporal punishment, parental punishment. And
Exactly.
if it starts and ends there. I mean, how many times have you heard me say, me and my sister being so well behaved, it's because I've been thrown against the restroom wall once. That's all it took, was taking me to the bathroom once. And then the threat of the bathroom demanded all respect for the rest of time.
Yeah.
So I think you're right, dude.
100%. And I've seen this happen too, right? Like I've seen a lot of kids that had a lot of problems in school. But then when their parents came to parent-teacher night or something, and then the parents knew what was going on, and they went back home after parent-teacher night, that kid for the rest of the year, straight A's, baby, in class, baby, not distracted, baby, zip in my mouth, baby, listening to the teacher and becoming the best student I can become. You know, and I see it. Like, I see it. And guess what? Like, it all comes down to just respecting people that are more experienced than you, that are older than you, that are here to teach you things that are maybe or may not be useful to you when you become their age, you know? But at the end of the day, knowledge is power, right? Like there's a lot of knowledge in school that you learn. 90% of it is just trash and fluff. But there's that 5 to 10% of knowledge that you learn in school that can really help you as an adult. It's true. I know a lot of people shit on schools and say like, oh no, you should homeschool your kids. But I kind of disagree with that, because there's a lot of realistic things that you learn in school, like getting along with people that you don't want to, but you have to, that you can take, for example, in your first job, right? Like you hate your boss or you hate your teacher, you don't like her, but you respect them and you get along with them. Just like your boss, you hate your boss. He's shitty. He's an asshole. He's a dumbass. He makes you do things that make zero sense. You know how to do these things more efficiently. And when you do them, you get punished. But guess what? Because you learned from school that, oh, this is my boss or this is my elder, I got to respect him. You just let it slide and you just take it one day at a time. And then you kind of just like do your own thing eventually, because then you kind of stop being micromanaged. And just like that in class too, like the teacher really shouldn't have to micromanage you. You should be already managed at home. And when you come to school, you should be ready to shut the fuck up and sit down and don't cause a ruckus in the classroom and learn, no matter what it is they're teaching you.
Word. That was poetic. That was poetic. No, because there's so much truth to that.
Really?
I want to ask one theoretical question, and we can philosophical question. We can close this bad boy down. But if a lot of your position is it starts at home and you could conquer it there, when we look at these issues, acting out, and well, one of the things you brought up is when you're working for someone and they may have it wrong, and you might have a better way of doing it, but they'll get mad at you if you do that, XYZ. You learn to be a good worker. Okay, well, balanced with this whole conversation we had, respect your elders, be a well-mannered, civilized member of society. On the flip side, Silent, we know the grand scheme of what's going on. The powers that be created the education system in the way that they did to craft domicile drone workers.
Factory workers,
right?
Yeah, true.
So the other side of what you said is, well, learn how to be like complacent. And when your boss is an idiot and is going to be maybe abusive towards you, take advantage of you, talk down to you, belittle you, even when you have the better way of doing things, or they're just flat out wrong. This same system we're creating praise for and finding value in. And again, I find nothing but value in how it helped shape me and my ability to grow. At the same time, if I didn't push back against the system as much as I did, it also would have succeeded more in making me just a blind worker. I mean, the people that did the best in that world, the further entrenched you were, the more rewarded you were. However, the less ability you had at seeing the fake wizard head, right? Like you're in Oz and you got so good at living the world in Oz, you couldn't see it's a dude behind a curtain. Yeah. And I think really that's why they say bees is probably C. Yeah, Bush ran the country with a C. That's about it. Really, you want somebody that's like a high B, because that was somebody that could stay dedicated enough to achieve the goal, but also weren't just blindly injecting it right into the vein, baby. Just whatever you're selling, I'm going to be the master of it. No, you gotta wrestle with it, push back against it, question it. Because this one, back to like these teachers we talked about. We talked about the great ones. The sad part is they're so outweighed by how many more terrible ones they are. And if you're not proactively wrestling the system, you're gonna have no ability to see who's a snake salesman idiot and who really are those diamonds in the rough. So my philosophical question to the room is, you sit here and say it starts at home. That's how you create being the best at developing this educational standard. But at the same time, we know this system is not trying to make you the greatest thinker. It's trying to make you the greatest drone.
Employee, yeah.
How do you walk that line, I guess philosophically, in wanting to compel them to be the best in this world? And I'm going to rule that with an iron fist. But on the flip side, knowing if I push the Play-Doh through the square too much, I've made you a block. And that's all you'll ever be. You'll be the best damn block. But there's going to be no rounded edges to you at all. And there's going to be no character. You're just going to be a walking textbook. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
It's honestly one of those things too that also is balanced at home, because me personally, I knew that, like, I hated school. I still hate school till this day. Like grade 6 to grade 12, I hated it, disliked it, didn't want to be there. But I understood that it was necessary because, and my dad would also like tell me, and he would explain to me that, listen, you're part of this system. Like, the school is building you to be, like you said, like an obedient employee, because that's really what the school system and the foundation of our modern education was built upon. That it was built upon, we are creating factory workers. Oh, you hear the bell ring, like just like in the factory, like
Bingo.
all of those conditioning things that they do. And I hated it because I was a very entrepreneurial kid. Like, I was selling gum, selling Pokemon cards, selling DVDs, baby, like things like that, like all sorts of things, that people wanted. And I was making like more money selling bubble gum after school and before school than a lot of my peers were working at McDonald's, and I knew like when I was at school, I knew that this is just temporary. You just have to be there, just play the game, follow the rules, like get your B's and A's, try to get a scholarship if you can, because then you'll get like a half ride or a full free ride, and you won't have to pay like 20 grand a year at a university or a college or whatever. And that's how I personally played it, right? And I know for a lot of people, they don't really have like their dad that runs the business or that like even works, but explains to them like, hey, listen, school sucks, but you gotta do it, because there's a lot of, like I said, there's that 1 to 5% lessons about socialization and listening and discussing and doing things that you hate to do, but you gotta do them anyways because it's just part of life, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's true. That comes back to the other side of it too, where they're like, when am I ever going to need geometry? And it's like, I'm not teaching you how to do proofs. I'm teaching you how to learn. And that's part of it too, is you need to be able to be malleable and grow.
Right. Exactly.
My wrapping thoughts, because I'm going to give it to you, Silent, after this. My wrapping thought is going to be this. One, totally shocking and depressing to come to realize they're going, hey, Gen Alpha's stupid. Why are they stupid? Because they're the level of the millennials. It's like, oh, good. I'm glad we made this a story tonight. So one of the breaking parts is that we came from a dumb generation, and the alarming part is that they're just as dumb as we were. But I guess that also opens the door to hope, because I also think the team that's carrying the torch the most to greater change is the millennials. So the boomers and the Xers in front of us Gen X is in front of us, Gen Z is behind us. Gen X sucks. They don't know what they're doing. They are at the Blade Disco. That's where they're at. Right, like that's all they've got on their mind.
Alex, I would say, based on some, few Google searches here, looking at a few sources, get a range of how a few of them put it. Millennials are like 1981 to 1996. That's what the general range, it differs on who you ask. So really, it's really only the end of our generation that is dumb as shit.
Nice.
So I'd like to argue that we are ahead of that dumb part of our generation. So just
Just
you're
3 years
feeling
before.
bad that
What?
it's our generation. It's really the end of our generation that ruined it for us.
Hey, thanks for bringing that back. That's good. We feel better.
Yeah, it's
The
not
whole
our, it's
point
not
of
our
the
year.
thing is, I think, yeah, we could get alarmed about it, but it's taking it on mass. I think where you see smart Gen Alpha kids, I was gonna say alphas, wherever you see these kids, there's the smart ones are probably going to be more brilliant than we could ever imagine, right? There's kids in that generation that are, multilingual at age 5. There's just so many more tools available to us. The ceiling is infinite. And so while we may be watching the movie Idiocracy unfold in front of our eyes en masse, yeah, the masses might be getting dumber, but I do think the heights are getting higher for those that are actually achieving it. And I think as long as we continue to have dialogues like this, our goals will stay true. And I think inevitably the pendulum will swing back. And with those ceilings only getting higher with the utilities and resources available to us, I think this is just a fun article title that we can laugh about and isn't truly indicative of the future. Silent, any rapping thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's like I said, each generation is going to think that the one before it or the one after it is dumber and that they're the ones that are going to solve
Ew.
everything or,
Right.
be the best and all that. But in reality is there's always just going to be a lot of dumb people and there's always just going to be a lot of smart people. The big issue is nowadays we get to see a lot more dumb people because think about it. When you were a kid, you probably knew like 5 dumb people from your high school, maybe 1 or 2 from the local restaurant or the local church or something. But now you get to see them every day on social media, right? And because of social media, you have this perception that the world has gotten dumber. But in reality is the world's not gotten dumber. These dumbasses were always there. It's just now they have a platform and someone is documenting them and posting them, or they themselves are documenting themselves and posting themselves. So that's why it may feel like the world is getting dumber. But at the end of the day, us as humans, we adapt, right? No matter what we're going through, we adapt. Like think of it as when you took music class, right? When you took music class, remember how you had to learn how to read music, but then you start to realize slowly that you don't really need to learn how to read sheet music, but it helps if you can, right? And just like we argued before, you don't really, in this day and age, you don't really need to learn how to read because Siri and ChatGPT and all the assistants can just read for you. But of course, it will help you tremendously. And it will change your life if you do know how to read in a very efficient, proficient manner. Like you said, at like a university level, like grad school, law school level sort of reading. Like, of course, your life will be much easier if you know how to read at that level. But at the end of the day, it's just us humans adjusting, right? And I think that's what these stats are showing. They're showing that like Gen Alpha is adjusting. They're realizing they don't really need to read that much and they're adjusting to it because technology is really just there to help them now, just like again we said earlier too, we have the calculator in our pockets now 24/7 365, and fun fact, a lot of people don't know this, but your calculator app, if you flip your phone, you then get the scientific numbers and tan and cotan and cosine,
Yeah, right.
and all
You used
that
to have
stuff.
that big ass calculator.
A lot of people don't know that, but now you can do that on your phone. Just flip your phone and you'll see all of the stuff. You don't need to carry the TI-84 anymore, And that's the point I'm trying to get at, is that eventually technology is just going to come in and do almost everything for us. Is it important and necessary for us to know these foundational basics? I think absolutely it is. But can you live your life without these foundational basics? You absolutely can.
No, I agree. It's a great way to put a cap on it. This one.
Do
Rapping
I
thoughts.
read the book, dumbass? Like Jesus, it's like again, like I agree with Silent. I'm gonna think they're stupid. They think I'm stupid. I'm right. It doesn't matter. Kids are gonna adapt. They're gonna find new ways to teach these kids. Kids are gonna get hip. They're gonna learn that school's not for them, and they're gonna try and find different avenues to make it work for themselves in the world. Then you're gonna have the drones that are the academics, or the drones that just want to go to work every day. Status quo is just a new way of doing it. each new generation is going to have a new inventive way to gather information and kind of see the world differently than how they're doing it in school. I mean, I have no idea how a school is being run now.
Right. With
I just-
ChatGPT in existence.
Exactly. So I just think of it like how when I was a kid and like the idea of like popcorn reading isn't a thing. I'm like, stupid. So I think these kids are going to be fine. And then, so what is it, like Gen Alpha? Then you're going to have Gen Chad or
Gen
whatever.
Beta.
Gen
Just
Beta.
a whole generation of betas.
They're going to go from Gen Alpha to Gen Chad to Gen Beta to Gen Cuck. And I'm going to be like, yeah, they're all stupid, but they're all learning. They're all figuring it out on their own. That's great. As long as these kids can still pick up and read the Harry Potter books, I won't be that mad.
Dude. So it was about a year ago, and it still hasn't come out yet. They just were advertising the rendition of the cinematic audiobook where they're having all these voice actors read the Harry Potter, and it's going to be this whole experience where they're going to put cinematic sound effects and like make it an audio experience versus just an audio book.
Sweet.
Yeah, dude, no one's picking up that book again.
Dude, you
That-
want
I
to know what's
listen- no,
crazy
I'd
is
do that.
if they're going to do that, why don't they just make them into a fucking movie?
Yeah, this is that. It's a movie for the blind.
It's great. Sorry.
Doug, wrapping thought.
I didn't see that.
I feel like we talked about a lot here. I remember having to take those standardized tests all the time. Like, I feel like in Ohio, because every state is actually different with those standardized tests. Ohio, we took one every year, and if you failed, you didn't pass the grade. But the bar to pass was like 50%,
Yeah.
like what you wouldn't consider passing. And then like when we got to high school, the OGT was our graduation exam. And if you got over a certain percentage, you didn't have to take the final as a sophomore. So that was them trying to encourage you to pass these tests. The amount of people that failed those OGT tests was absurd, actually, but they were so easy.
And then they moved on to being our teachers.
Yeah.
Really?
Those are those folks.
Dude, I remember on the I did above average on all the OGT tests, like enough that I passed so I would graduate. And also I didn't have to take the finals. Yes.
10th grade subtle
Woo.
brag.
But
So
I
boom in the
remember I
house.
got like a 98% on the history OGT, and my one buddy got a 50%. And I was like,
fucking idiot.
what?
And yet, Doug, we live in a world where none of that matters.
Nope. None
Like,
of
I
it
bet
matters.
you if you told me that friend, it probably isn't somebody that's doing nothing.
I mean, I would be a history teacher if you didn't have to also become a teacher in both history and English, because this whole discussion. fuck
I
that.
think you could swindle that with someone, Doug. I think East Cleveland would be like, you just want history? It's all yours.
You probably have to be a coach too.
Yeah, Doug. Run
I
if
do
you
have
want.
a coaching license from. I've renewed it every year through the state. I got one in college, and I've
Why?
renewed it every year
Yeah.
Why? Why do you renew it?
because I
know.
might as well. It's easier to renew than take the test again.
Is it?
It is. It's cheaper.
All right. Well, that's fun. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining us. We go live each week. Let me bring Silent back in here. Silent, thank you for joining us. Tell the folks where they can find you.
Thank you guys for having me. Kick.com/SilentDestroyer. Live every single day.
That's right. Make sure you join them because the live streams have been a blast lately. I've been really
Thank you.
enjoying them, especially when you go out on the street. So be
Yes,
sure to
lots of
click on
fun.
over and check out Silent on kick.com. But
Absolutely.
guys, like I was saying, thank you for joining us. We go live every week. We got the Tuesday show live here, 7 p.m. Eastern each week. But also we've got our podcast. We've got So Here's Where I'm At. Doug and I do a live show on Sundays. Then we follow it up with our football show at noon with Will as well. And you can find all of that in one central place. And that's at our website at www.rethinktankpodcast.com. So if you're looking for one central place where you can find all the different content, head on over there. But otherwise, I want to thank everybody that joined us for the live show, because the whole purpose of going live is to get you involved. So to Brad Richardson, Just Another Day TV with Ricky, and everybody else, thank you for joining us, because the whole purpose of the live show is to get you involved. We don't want just our echo chamber. We want you to help us rethink. And if we made you think, if we made you laugh, the best thing you could do to support this show is share that link. You know, hit the like, hit the subscribe so you don't miss us again. But we're in a fight against algorithms that don't want us having real productive conversations like this. So the best thing you could do to support what we're doing here each week is just send that link around. If you liked it, that means someone else you did too. Post it, share it. But otherwise, guys, like I said, we'll catch you next week. Peace.